Hey, Tom.
This is the Board of Education regular business meeting for which adequate notice under the Open Public Meetings Law was provided by written notice on April 26, 2007 to the Courier News, the Echo Sentinel, the Reporter, the Star Ledger, and the clerks of the borough of Watchung and the townships of Long Hill and Warren. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Binder?
I'm here.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Here.
Mr. Fechner?
Here.
Mr. Horowitz? Mr. Pepe?
Yo-ho.
Mr. Vandell?
Yes.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seelig?
Yes. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I was like trying to rush it, but we'll start with the reports and presentations, and with that, we'll start with Dr. Thompson.
Thank you, Dr. Seelig. At the beginning of the meeting, I would like just to make a couple of remarks about a staff member here who met an untimely death on Friday. He was loved and respected by everyone here. Joe Heath, who had been with the police department in Hillside for 27 years and left that position as deputy chief, came here about 2 years ago and really made his mark on Watchung Hills. He has been really, he was, I should say, a wonderful person, great love of family, great love of his particular family, and the Watchung Hills family was quick to love him back. So I would like us to just observe a moment of silence in his memory, a wonderful man who is greatly missed by all. Thank you. I'd like to also just point out that this past week we inducted 91 students into our National Honor Society. Very, very excellent program was held last Thursday evening. Also, I'd like to acknowledge Shelley Leddington, who was chosen by them as Teacher of the Year. This evening we'll also have two presentations. One I will be making on the state of the district, mid-year report, and a focus group summary report on the science schedule that will be made by Dr. DeGancy and Mr. DeLassio. Thank you, Dr. Seelig.
Thank you. I don't have many comments. Just one, we did get a letter from Jared acknowledging and condolences. Thank you for your letter to us.
Thank you.
We're all sorry to hear the passing of your mother. With that, I'm done with my comments. We can go on to Mr. Sines.
Thank you, Mr. President. I only have a couple. One of which is on Thursday of this week, I will be I'll be attending a seminar about the budget guidelines and hopefully a little bit of information on the state aid. You've seen some of the articles in the paper. They are looking to produce a new funding formula. So anything new is good, I hope. I'm not going to. We'll find out. So I will have some more to discuss about the budget next board meeting. I also wanted to just touch on a topic that I've had a couple of emails over. Had to do with a recent newspaper article in the newspaper, the Echo Sentinel, and also in the Courier News prior to that, about a fatality that took place in November 2005. There were some comments and questions on insurance coverage. And just so the board is aware, we were served with the summons. It was on Monday, November 26th, last Monday. The summons named the bus driver, Dealman Enterprises, and the school. Those are the three that were named in the suit. The matter was immediately referred to our insurance company with a copy to our lawyer. And just so your understanding of the coverage that we have in this particular case, we are first covered as an additional insured with, under Dealman Bus's property, their Dealman Bus's insurance coverage. So you understand that we were an additional insured under their policy. So they have, at that point in time, they had $1 million in auto and $4 million in excess. So we share that coverage with them. Okay? Our coverage at the time, and it was in 2005, the board's coverage was basically $61 million. We had $1 million auto, $10 million excess, and a $50 million umbrella policy. And that only takes effect only after the Dealman policy, just so you're aware of that. There were some general liability questions, and I'll attempt to go through a few of them, just so you're aware. And this has to do with our coverage now. The current coverage, it is on page 91 of our audit. I can submit that to the board and send that as you wish, but it is under 91, on page 91 of the audit, and it details each of the liability areas. One of the questions, and I'll go through some of the ones that Dr. Yagat had asked, is the coverage based on a certain limit per incident, and also aggregate dollar, and the answer to that is yes to both. We have a limit per incident, which is the same as the aggregate limit. So under a typical incident, for example, auto, our liability right now is our coverage is $60 million now. So we're covered for 60 per incident, but also aggregate $60 million. So you're aware. It first kicks into the auto coverage carrier, then goes to the excess, and then goes to the umbrella. I know that sounds confusing, but insurance can also be very confusing.
Are they different companies that do the auto versus excess versus umbrella?
They can be. They're not always the same. It can be. It all depends on how the bids fall out. And we don't do the bidding. It's our broker who does that. One of the questions was, are board members covered under a separate policy? And what's our coverage? And the board members are covered under school board legal for acts attributable to service to the Board of Education. Board members are also included as insured on general liability and auto liability programs, and the current limit for school board legal is $5 million, and also the excess applies as well. Again, there was a question on homeowner policies and umbrella policies for your personal protection. And what I would suggest to you in that particular case is that you might want to talk to your own carriers if you feel the need is there for that. One of the questions was, if something happens in 2005, does the company who we were with in 2005 take care of the incident, particularly the bus incident? And yes, the answer is yes. In this case, and again, in this case, the Dealman Insurance, whoever they had in 2005 would handle their coverage and also include us in that coverage. In other words, they'll be defending us for the first $5 million, just so you're aware of that. And also, our coverage back in 2005 is, and those carriers that were taking care of our insurance in that year would take care of this, if need be. And one of the questions, the last question I had was, it was about the umbrella policies and the excess insurance. Currently we have an excess policy of $5 million, and we have a commercial umbrella of $50 million, and it's called a cap policy. The reason we do that is because in our liability areas, we generally have $5 million. Like, for example, auto is $5 million. In order to get the cap policy, which is the $50 million umbrella, which is kind of like an excess policy, you need to have at least $10 million of liability coverage to get it from these other carriers. So we need the $5 million to pick up the additional 50. And this is something that our broker handles for us. The cap policy, the $50 million cap coverage policy, and that was one of the questions, and Bernie did ask that. It stands for Catastrophe Access Program. What that basically means is we're in a group of 50 schools that share in this liability, and we do that basically to cut costs on the premiums. So I hope that answers some of the issues or concerns you may have over the incident that was in the paper.
What measures have measures been taken to, and can measures be taken to avoid such tragedies in the future? Was anything changeable? I mean, I would imagine there's certain regulations in terms of safety and so forth, and that are there ways that we can exceed that? I guess is my question.
That's up, the Development Bus Company has to comply with all of the regulations, and I'm certain that we have seen in the past, at least since I'm here 7 years, that their record has been very good. So it was a very unfortunate.
I remember well.
accident,
It was a
very
horrible
terrible
tragedy.
evening. The weather was just atrocious that evening. Just, you know, I'm sure they are committed to doing everything possible to keep our students safe and all students safe.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else, Tim?
That's all I have.
Okay. With that, we'll go on to principal's comments.
With our high school football's 32-13 victory over Ridge on Thanksgiving Eve, that ended the fall season, and we're moving on to the winter season. All of the fall banquets are complete except for football, which will be in 2 weeks, Wednesday just before the holidays. The National Honor Society, as Dr. Stromslin indicated, inducted over 90 students on last Thursday. This Friday, we are inducting a good number of students into the National Art Honor Society at 7 o'clock in the atrium area, and Mrs. Gadens and Mrs. Mulder and Mr. Colabella would kindly enjoy you coming that evening if you can make it. They have given, they've extended an invitation to everyone on the board. 7 o'clock in the mall area. It should be an hour and 10 minutes. It really is a very brief induction, but it's a very meaningful one. It will be our second one. We are currently number 2 in the nation in the collection of coats and food for the needy, which was a school-wide initiative in November, which is wonderful. And next week, we will have our holiday concerts. Wednesday, which is December 12th, will be our band and instrumental, and Friday, December 14th, will be our choral/vocal concert. Both begin at 7:30, and they should be outstanding. That's all. Thank you, Dr. Seeley.
Thank you.
Maybe it's not relevant for this one, but you talked about the change of season for football, and I was just thinking back to when we had this opt-out, and I'm wondering how that's going with giving the instruction towards the wellness called a wellness program. But is there any issues that have come up with getting all the kids
No, not at all. Not that I've
slotted
become
into the
aware
right
of.
things? And
We could check further on it and get back to you at the next meeting.
yeah, okay, it just
Why don't we
triggered
do that?
triggered the thought. I'd just like to know.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to our student representatives' comments. Which one wants, Russ, you want to go first? Dan, you want to go first? Whoever wants to go first.
Well, we had the blood drive, I believe, last Wednesday, and a lot of students came out and supported the cause and gave blood. A lot of teachers as well, such as like Mr. Wallach and yeah. But, yeah, it was a big success, and so that was good. And we're still having our bonfire. Do you know exactly? December 7th.
No, we moved it to the 13th.
December 13th. Okay, so that'll still be going on for the winter sports, and that's the day before the first basketball game, I believe, which is December 14th. So.
And then last week, Dr. Ganti gave the rest of the ASC like a presentation about the rotating drop, and I think we had some good questions for him and everything. And I think it cleared up a lot of the confusion about it. People are a little more optimistic than they were. I can definitely say that. And we he addressed most of our concerns. I think everything's going to turn out okay. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a question for you, Russ. Do students come up to you and ask you questions about what's happening with the rotating drop and other student government?
Some people ask me, or like, I hear people saying things, they'll be like, actually, it's more like this, so it's not, you're not in class for like 2 hours every day.
People ask it more than me because I'm a senior, so I don't really get a lot of senior concerns about that.
Yeah, we would.
It's a logistical issue there, I think.
Okay.
Worry about it.
I got a
So,
question.
so your comments on the rotating drop schedule came from a presentation that Dr. DeGancy gave to the student body or to the
He gave it to the ASC last week.
Oh, school
student council? Cool.
I had a number of people ask me a question about the blood drive. Are students that are 16 and 17 allowed to give blood?
Yeah, 17.
Is it
17
17?
older. And if
Okay.
you're, I think, 16, you need a parent's consent.
Okay. all
And you
right.
have to be more than 110 pounds.
Right.
Okay. No, the people ask
Something
this
wet.
normally, yeah. Now I got an answer.
Okay. With that, we'll move on to committee reports. It looks like we had 4 committees: personnel, buildings and grounds, curriculum, and co-curricular. Any other committees meet? All right, with that, why don't we go into
No, curriculum didn't meet, I'm sorry about that.
all right, curriculum didn't meet. Cross them off.
Okay.
Who is going to report from personnel?
I can.
Did he mention that?
We met on the 26th. First thing we talked about is Director of Operations. We looked over, there's I think in our packet also, there's a job description. And so that's something we can talk about when it comes up on the agenda. We also talked about a replacement Director of Guidance. Right now, there's difficulty finding candidates, I guess. Small pool out there, and some of those that are out there are certainly at a premium price. Not a lot of people looking to move. I think there was one candidate that came in that was, although it didn't look very well on paper, perhaps, if I could say it that way, actually interviewed well, and I think there's consideration to bringing that person back for a second round of interviews. But, you know, I guess we'll need somebody come February, and at this point, not having a lot of success out there. Another position that we talked about is an administrative assistant for special services. I think there was, I'm trying to read my notes, somebody, is that Chris that you're going to make 12 months on that position?
No, that was at a different position. That would be in the guidance office.
Okay, that's in the guide as well.
The administrative assistant for special services would replace the individual that's now working in my office. And that has, you have that as an action
Right,
item
okay.
tonight.
What I was looking at was some of the salary adjustments, and Chris going from 12 months to
Right.
10 months to 12 months. Is that on the agenda too? I didn't
No,
see that.
it's not.
Okay, not on the agenda yet. And then I think the other thing we talked about is trying to move forward towards 2 things. One is a complete organizational chart and structure so that everything kind of fits together, both from the business office standpoint and the administrative standpoint. And any new positions that might come up for next year, in particular some help in the nursing office, I think, but all that being done before budget time.
Any questions? Okay, we'll go on to buildings and grounds. Luke?
Here we are.
Yeah. Buildings and here.
We met last Thursday with Don and all of us, and just an update, the South Auditorium, we're waiting for the pull stations to be put in. I don't know if we got pricing on that yet, the pull station?
Yeah, I did get a call from Don Fuhr today.
Okay.
We're going to have to discuss that one a little
Yeah,
further in committee.
I heard some of that already.
We're gonna
So
have
we're
to-
still trying to find a way to get someone in to do that, because there's also a
Right.
few that need to be installed in the gym.
But it is, just to cut in, Lou, but it is, we're moving in a favorable direction.
Right, it's forward.
Yes.
The pit lift, they're still waiting for the DCA, what is it? Joyce Dayton, I'm trying to think of all the
Joyce Dayton.
friggin' names we're dealing with. Joyce Dayton is supposed to be submitting a letter with straight verbiage on that the lift meets all the required calculations that they requested. They have a little confusion reading all their calculations, so they want just straight language saying that the lift meets all the necessary requirements that they've requested. So that's in the process of being written. There was a lot of condensate pipes throughout the building that weren't insulated well, and we're getting a lot of water damage on the ceiling tiles. That's been addressed. The company came in, covered most of them, and also stated that as Russ goes through the building, if there's more pipes, they'll come back and re-insulate those. We had, still working with Cavett. That's an uphill battle. But Russ, Tim, and Don are together overseeing it to make sure we get everything that we're supposed to from them before Tim signs any agreement. The hood certification, I think Tim's got the PO cut for that.
Yeah, we did get a PO cut, and we did schedule them to come out to do the fume hoods in the science labs.
Okay.
When is it scheduled for?
You know, I don't know the exact date, Paul. I know it's,
Sometime in,
well, it's not in January. It should be in December. It's relatively shortly, I know that, because I know there's quite a bit of, we're getting quite a bit of calls on it.
And the TV studio, we're still waiting for the DCA's blessing on that one. That's still in review down at DCA. Also, a positive note, Don Fury met with McBride, and they're at least discussing getting them back to start up some of the equipment that they're responsible for. So that's a positive note. Before we weren't even talking to them, at least now they're willing to talk about it, so that's a positive. Today, Russ and myself walked the entire facility with the local fire inspectors. It went excellent. Most of the items they found are just housekeeping items, extension cords, missing wall plate here, ceiling tiles, things like that. There weren't any major issues found that we don't already know about or are already dealing with. So it went very well. So that list will come out. By the time we get it, Russ will probably have 50% of it done already. So that went excellent. So we're in good shape there. And then we're still waiting for our legal advisors to release the Wiss-Janney report for the tile floor. So.
okay. Any questions? All right, with that, Lou, did you guys, Pete, did you meet on co-curricular?
Yeah, we met, and there were a couple items discussed. One was the changing of the athletic permission form, and that's being worked on. Mr. Saratella will present that to the administration, which will then be presented to us if that is the proper course of action. And the second item or topic of discussion was the role of Director of Operations. That was discussed at length, and I don't believe there was a consensus arrived by the people who were at that meeting. And there were certain budgetary things that might have been brought up and discussed, and Mr. Saratella is working on the budget with the principal to make sure all our activities are funded, and funded beforehand as opposed to afterward.
Questions, Pete?
When we get to later in the meeting where we're discussing the Director of Operations position, will you share with us the discussions that were had at the meeting regarding that? Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Do you have anything on 50th anniversary, any changes, things coming up?
No, still, we just have been told by the foundation that they're going to run a casino night in April, and we have the dinner dance March 14th, and I believe they're starting on the Hall of Fame process for inductees in January.
Question,
Yes.
April, Tom? Is
April-
that casino night going to conflict with the?
We have our April 12th induction.
Okay,
We know
what
we'll make
Fame-
sure it's
casino
not
night?
April 12th.
Yeah.
We'll make sure it's not April 12th.
Either
Could
that
be
or-
April
or
13th,
Either that or
just
we'll
here.
gamble an additional position.
So the next thing is really then the Hall of Fame inductions in January, right?
Well, I think they're going to be inducted in April. but
April.
They're going to, beginning the process of,
They're beginning the process in
Right.
January. Okay. Sorry. With that, any other comments or questions from committee reports? Let's move on to the State of the District report.
okay, thank you, Dr. Seelig. I have extra copies of the report that was distributed to the board a couple of weeks ago, in case you need one. There are also copies of the, black and white copies of the PowerPoint up here on the desk.
Fran, I'll get that.
This is going to be a PowerPoint. I'm going to have to stand over there. I don't like tweaking.
Okay. Just curious if you have any feelings about anything else that's in the supplements.
Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for this opportunity to give you an update on the state of the district as for this current school year. This report was prepared with assistance from the department supervisors and the various directors. It's intended to give you a brief, sort of a maybe a 1,000-foot view looking over the school as to what's been going on in the various program areas, both academic and programmatically in our school for the last several months. Of course, none of this happens in isolation. It all builds upon what has been done in the past. And I do hope that you've had the opportunity, the board members have had the opportunity to read this report, and I certainly invite members of the community to read it as well. In our athletic program, as you might know, we're up and running. We have 65 NJSIAA sanctioned sports. We were very competitive in many areas. We've had 75 clubs up and running since the beginning of the school year. And we've had the addition of a weight room, which is also a fitness and wellness teaching station, donated with generosity from the Touchdown Club, which is a football organization, for the flooring. And you'll see on the agenda tonight, we also received some weight equipment through the generosity of the Touchdown Club. In the arts, we're implementing 6 new courses. I believe the board was presented with these course proposals last year and agreed to provide these courses should funding permit. And I have to say that we have seen these courses begin to be introduced into our curriculum. It really does round out the program of studies that we offer in the arts. Also, the school is really alive with projects that are being completed by students in the arts and in the English department. If you walk through specifically the South Wing, you'll notice the On the Road project that envelops all of the hallways where the students have written on brown craft paper the On the Road journeys that they have taken in collaboration with the work done by Robert Frank and Jack Kerouac on the road. And some of our teachers have been very creative in having field trips around the buildings with their various classes to review some of the on-the-road experiences that our children have relayed through photography, through writing, through various multimedia experiences. So that's our first venture into that type of activity. It's been very well received by students and faculty alike. In our English department, we've had guest lecturers of local authors that have been funded by PTO and other groups. We've implemented a writing lab workshop where students can get individual attention from a teacher on duty regarding papers and other work that they're doing for class. And of course, the interdisciplinary project, the introduction with collaboration with the class on the Holocaust and the On the Road project, which as I just mentioned a few moments ago. In guidance, close to 600 applications were processed for early decision or early action. The colleges that have visited have been over 60 and fit the various profiles of the Barron's Book for College, where rankings from most competitive to less competitive have been on campus to visit with our students. We've had some evening programs For parents, all have been very well attended, and I've had very good feedback from parents about these programs. The guidance counselors themselves have gone to workshops, various college tours, financial aid conferences, in order to bring information that's timely and current to parents. In our math department, we've already reported on some of this information when we did our testing summary. HESPA results, highest ever in our history of the HESPA year, and AYP, not APY, sorry for the typo, was achieved for all subgroups. You recall that Mr. D'Alessio spoke to us, I guess 1 or 2 meetings ago regarding the sequencing of the algebra courses, and we are in active dialogue with the district curriculum committee, with cabinet, and with the board curriculum committee, which will be coming up in another week or so, about the introduction of an SAT course proposal for possible implementation in the next school year. Some of this we've talked about when we talked about our opt-out program, but we do have our kids participating in the wellness and adventure ed classes. The teachers and students seem to be very positive about the pilot science PE block, which, we do the rotation, 3 days of science, 2 days of PE, and they have basically a double period, so they have more access and time on labs. The child development program has officially relocated into its new facility, into its new area, which seems to be working out very well, with the parents having a little drop-off circle and be able to come in and out that door that's dedicated for the child development area. We have got maximum enrollment in all sections of that course. Professional development has been an area that has really had a lot going on since the new teacher orientation began the 28th, 29th, and 30th of this year. That's the time when teachers, whether they're new to the teaching profession or whether they are just new here at Watchung Hills, become adjusted and exposed to our climate and our culture. They are given a very full program, which is basically some of it just compliance issues, things that are required by law, and other things that are more appropriate to delivering instructional practices and programs here at Watchung Hills. All of our supervisory staff, vice principals, all take a very active role in delivering this new teacher orientation. And I have to say that I was part of it from afar this year. Usually I'm right in the thick of it, but I did my presentation to the new staff via a vodcast, a video podcast, which was kind of cool. First time I had ever done that. The nurses and SACs presented the Signs of Suicide Prevention Program to our faculty at a faculty meeting recently, which is again one of the requirements of law and code. Also the bloodborne pathogens and infectious disease control, especially this year with MRSA being on the horizon. The nurses have been very, very instrumental in educating the faculty, the staff, the students about proper hygiene and the idea of being proactive and preventive in terms of these types of things. We had our Institute Day on October 8th. Oh, sorry about that, went ahead of myself. On October the 8th, which was very well attended, and much information was shared with the faculty at that time as well. In science, we're in the second year of the Math Application Science Skills course. Basically, this is the course that allows students to begin to draw connections between math and science, and it's given in freshman year so that students begin to start thinking of these patterns of connections, not solely looking at the math concepts and the science concepts in isolation, but beginning to marry them together. Project Lead the Way is also continuing to expand with programs in engineering, design, and development. We've had additional teacher trained in the Project Lead the Way program. Under Jeff's leadership, this really has taken off in the last 5 years. For those of you that are not familiar with Project Lead the Way, it's funded and developed by the National Science Foundation. We are one of the few schools in the area that has embraced this and been using it with our students to introduce them to the pre-engineering disciplines and to help students achieve college credit for this type of coursework done in our high school. Jeff has also been instrumental in implementing an experimental research course, which right now has 12 students engaged in various projects at the Astrophysics Lab at Rutgers, the Plasma Physics Lab at Princeton, and the Molecular Genetics at the Waxman Institute that's located at Rutgers. Our students have had the good fortune through Jeff's connections at Rutgers and through some of our teaching staff connections at Princeton to have these types of experiences and be part of that. Social Studies has been very active as well. They have organized their whole program around a team approach, which is something that is new to the Social Studies department. Many of our other programs and departments have used the team approach for their teaching and strategy development through curriculum mapping, which I think you heard about a little bit last year, but you'll hear more about it this year as well. These are some of the high points that they've been involved with. The Facing History in Ourselves has been really quite a moving experience for our teachers. The Wyman family has generously donated the teaching materials and the staff development activities that our teachers have been exposed to over this since last spring. It is a very moving curriculum in that it uses the vehicle of storytelling of people who have been through various oppressive situations, not just the Holocaust, but all types of areas where people have experienced some type of injustice or oppression. And the experience is told through the voices of the people who experience those types of political situations. In the Special Services Department, we have about 12 of our students with learning disabilities attending the Structured Learning Experience Program. This is a program that has been developing over time. We have about 40 or 42 work sites in various places around our community where students can begin to job shadow, be job coached, and eventually upon graduation be placed in a position where they can have meaningful employment. We've also been strengthening our co-teaching model for in-class support by having workshops with staff so that students, the work between the teacher and the co-teacher is seamless. There is no feeling, oh, that's the teacher and that's an aide, or who is that other person. There's a real seamless integration of instruction in the classes that have in-class support. In world languages, we expect to offer AP Chinese and AP Italian in 2008-09, of course, within the constraints of our budget. We have had students participate in Project Acceleration through Seton Hall University, and we anticipate the approval of students obtaining Project Acceleration credit in the areas of Chinese and Italian also in 2008-09. The exchange program continues to thrive and grow. I know many of you personally have been involved in that, having had students who have students here, hosting students who have visited recently. The Austrian program was in October and was our first exchange with Austria. And kind of a cute aside with that is that one of the students that came here from Austria is royal and lives in a castle. So it should be very interesting when our student who goes to Austria gets to live in that environment. Should be kind of fun. I don't get to do that. In conclusion, what we focus on in the district here and have been ever since I've been here, which is going 7.5 years now, has been a model of continuous improvement. That's the mantra. That's what I say to everyone. I say that to the supervisors, the directors, the teachers, the teacher assistants, everyone that works here. The minute we stop or stand still, we lose ground. We always have to continually look at ourselves for ways we can improve. Doesn't mean that we're doing a bad job. All it means is that there are always ways we can look at to improve what we're doing. Evaluate it, step back from it, think about it from the user's point of view. Think about it from the client's point of view, in the sense of the clients being these guys here, our students. What will be the best thing to help students be able to work more effectively as young citizens in our immediate environment, being the school environment, and then once they leave us, going forward into the big world out there. We continue to try to use research to discuss various ways to implement strategies to hook these guys into learning about what we want them to know. The podcast and the vodcast. You know, those of you who have teenagers at home probably notice they have the little buds, you know, growing out of their ears most of the time. And it's sort of cute to me because when I walk around the halls, which I frequently do, you know, the minute that bell rings, the kids are out in the hall, the buds go in, and they've got their music going. They got their iPod in the pocket, and they're just grooving along down the hallways. So we're using these kinds of technology to reach kids in ways, you know, we've got to speak their language because they're not going to speak ours, right? We have to reach them on a level that they feel comfortable with. They're far smarter, at least I'll say, than I am in terms of the technology. And I think of myself as fairly tech savvy. But they can do things with technology that we haven't even dreamed of yet. And we have to continue to try to cultivate that interest and enthusiasm and motivation by using tools that the students are friendly with and developing those tools even further. I'm sure the students are thrilled about to hear that we have our new procedures in place to expedite ROMs. Those are reports of misconduct. So the notifications, justice is swift. You know, if you have a ROM, you're going to find out about it really quickly, and so are your parents. And you're going to be dealt with very, very quickly and fairly. Also, our attendance is taken electronically now, period by period, and an automatic caller dials home to let the parents know, or I should say, to verify the student's absence, and then also to find out, you know, why they are absent. Basically, what we try to do here is maintain a positive educational environment for all, whether you're a student or a teacher, administrator, hopefully even for the superintendent. We've had a lot of emphasis on our 50th anniversary. I don't know if any of you have called here recently, but we recently had someone enroll from out of state, and apparently the school district that they belonged to, when they were in a different state, the teachers had just gone on strike. So when they came here and they called up and they got the message, you know, the outgoing message, and my voice is on there saying, you know, welcome to the Hills, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary, and, you know, come up here, visit us, and all of this, all the things that I say at that message, they felt so comfortable. They felt so welcome. They felt like they would have a place that their student would be successful. So the 50th anniversary has done a lot to help everyone feel that they're part of a bigger community. 50 years has gone by. Who knows what the next 50 hold? But this has done a lot to bring our community in a cohesive, to feel cohesive around a sense of purpose and mission. Of course, Tom and Michael will talk about tonight the focus groups and the science schedule. I'm glad to hear that the students had positive feelings and positive feedback from the information that was presented at the ASC. But this is all part of our model of continuous improvement. Let's try to find out what we're doing right. Let's continue to improve upon it. If we are doing things that are not working the way we expect, let's look at that, evaluate it, and do something about it. Let's make it better. So basically, that's where we are in terms of the State of the District report. Happy to answer any questions you might have. Again, this was focused solely on program and academic implementation of academic areas, and I hope it was helpful for you. Thank you.
Questions?
message? As you're walking down the hall?
Believe me, we've thought
Food
about
is
it.
good, go to class, all that kind of stuff.
We've thought about it, but I don't think it's legal.
No?
Clean up your room, pick up your book. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to address the board.
This update serves as part of a ongoing role of the board for oversight that I hope will help us meet some of our CUSAC responsibilities for information flow. We'll see. With that, we'll move on to the next one, which is then, last time we had a discussion from Dr. Begancy on the rotating drop schedule, and there were a number of questions that came up from that. And I think, are you going to talk about it today, Mike? Whoever's going to talk on the schedule and science, I guess the science schedule.
You're going to get up again?
If you want
Go
to
ahead.
turn around, or
Yeah.
It'll hurt my neck.
when we sat and talked in the summertime, we tried to think of, for the focus group, which include, if you remember, supervisors, teachers, and whatnot, what are the key elements towards making the transition to a rotating drop successful? One we knew would be the lunch. People would have questions regarding it. How would you develop a program that would run efficiently? And that's what we discussed 2 weeks ago. Second area was science. Not necessarily for a majority of the school, but especially for the science teachers and the physical education teachers. Because for years, physical education and science were commingled. If you had science 5 days a week, and on one of those days, you had a lab attached to the study hall. So wherever you had a science class, you had a physical education class right next to it, okay? And in every school system, probably 90% of the classes were scheduled in this manner. With the block model we've used for the past 2 years, we've now been able to create 3 days a week, 90-minute science, 2 days physical education. So that kind of works out nice, and we've managed to address the two science situation. Okay. In the rotating block, there's a question: where the labs come from science? Do you still commingle them with physical education? Well, I'm going to answer it yes and no. The yes part of it, there will be some classes that are commingled, and the no part is for probably 90 to 92% of our classes, for the first time ever, we're going to be able to schedule science and physical education separately. And that's like nirvana, because now we don't have to commingle them, have them right next to one another. A kid can ask for certain physical education classes, like a kid can ask for certain history classes or certain world language classes, and might be able to get them, because it's not attached now to a science or a physical education class. But then you ask, how do you handle the lunches? The labs, okay, if they're not. Well, in this case, as we used in our last example, wherever science is, whenever it abuts the lunch period, the common lunch period, you get 22 extra minutes of that class. That is now goes from 56 to 78 minutes, and that's the lab. Whereas now we have 35 labs, 36 labs, this will allow us to have 45 labs with the rotation, as it is. And in the bottom, if your science
I'm
has...
sorry,
Yes.
when you 36 versus 45,
Labs.
what, each kid during the school year will have 45 as opposed to 36?
Yes,
Thank you.
of different times. Remember, our 36 now are approximately 89 minutes. This would be 78 minutes, okay, our 45 labs. In the bottom, or after lunch, wherever the science abuts lunch, the kid, the student, halfway through lunch, will go to the science class, begin his lab and get his or her 78 minutes halfway through lunch and through the fourth time slot. So you're either getting it before the AM or after lunch, halfway through. Okay, so that makes sense. The schools that run it this way find that that's the most efficient way of using the time, the 22 minutes, or half the lunch period. Remember, our lunch period is 44, half is 22. Now, what it will look like, if Mike, if you can get to the next one. We'll go back to that. For a typical teacher of science, he or she would have maybe 2 classes a day. And if it happens to be a lab day, he or she would have lab for 78 minutes. And then the teachers like, when one group leaves, another group comes in, and they get the lab from half the lunch through the fourth time slot, or time slot 4 right after lunch. So the setup is there, they're ready, you know, they just finished with one class, and then another class comes in, they have the chemicals there, they have the specimens there for biology, they have the water tanks there for physics to handle rays and all sorts of things, and they don't have to set up as frequently. It's an efficient use of the time. Now, in this particular model, their lunch would either come, they could take their lunch afterwards, teachers that is, or before, because they will always have a TP&P, which is a teacher preparation and planning, and they will always have, well, not always, but they may have a productivity depending upon the schedule, and a duty depending upon the schedule. But they will have their normal lunch, just not at the normal time, if they are blocked together in one lunch. The other 2 days, they could have a productivity, TP&P, a duty, TP&P, whatever the schedule does. It's a wondrous thing now.
Tom, can I just add one little
Sure.
thing there? One of the things about that movement of the students going into the lab period, going into the lunch from, let's say, period or time slot 3, and then the next group going in between the lunch and time slot period, time slot 4, is that will serve almost as a bit of a way to tier the students into the lunch period as well. You may have, instead of the whole 2,000 and whatever number of students we currently have, you may end up with 1,500 or 1,600 students at a given time during the lunch period, with those students who are coming in and those students that are leaving. So it does help to regulate the flow of students into the lunch period as well. I think I've said that appropriately, have I not?
No, I think you framed it beautifully.
Okay.
We think it's going to be about 200 to 300 kids tiered.
Now, there was a concern for our honors classes and for our physical education class, our honors and our AP classes, that they would be losing some time in the rotating drop. And we were asked, is there anything that we can do to somehow get some more time for the AP and honors? Because at the end of the second and third week in May, our kids have to take a rather rigorous exam in environmental science, in physics, in advanced placement biology, and advanced placement, what did I miss? Chemistry. So, and physics. So if you go back to any of those, okay? If you go back to the student schedule, it would be easier that way. Thank you. Here's science. Let's say it's AP chemistry. Very simple. You would have phys ed abutting right next to it. Phys ed meets 9 out of 12 days in the rotation, but they don't need that many hours. They have more than enough time. So all you would do is twice within a 12-day rotation, have them, instead of going to phys ed, have them go to the science lab. So they get those extra minutes within the rotation to do what they need to do in the AP and the honors curriculum. So we were able to find a solution to that problem for the time, because the concern was, right now we have 9,500 minutes for science. If we just go into the lunch, we lose about 500-600 minutes. This regains it and gives us a little bit more for the AP and the honors kids, which is a wonderful thing. What this also does is allow some of the kids now who are not AP and honors, who do not have a lab. For example, the biology K kids don't have a lab. The integrated science kids don't have a lab right now. This allows them, when their science abuts lunch, either in the morning or the afternoon, to get a lab. We are now able to provide them with a lab at this point. So this provides some nice little entities that we couldn't do before. If you'll go back to the middle. To summarize, the labs are tied to lunch. You get a 22 extra minutes tied to a 56-minute period. It's greater efficiency of lab facility use. We are blessed with a nice number of labs to address the needs of all of our students, because a good number of our students take science for all 4 years. So this allows us to address their needs most efficiently and use the lab areas most efficiently. We get a 50% increase in teacher common meeting time. Okay, when we can have labs abutting into lunch, that gives teachers more time to talk during the day, science teachers. And as I indicate, the AP and H science will be linked to PE. PE will have the required amount of time that they need by the state of New Jersey, and the AP and honors courses will get the time that they need to address the needs in the rigorous AP program. So we think we've found a beautiful schedule in order to address the needs of our kids. That's it. Luke?
The one problem I'm seeing is that if you're on the afternoon side of the science, you're going to have an issue lunch. You got 22 minutes, correct?
Yep.
With the large amount of kids that we have going to lunch at that time, they're going to have a tough time getting through the line, getting their lunch, sitting down and eating, and then getting to class in that 22 minutes. Not so on the other half, where most of the kids will be served already, there'll be shorter lines, that won't be such an issue. But on that half, I don't know if we address that in a separate serving station for those kids, or what?
They're going to be, the company will be adding more serving stations to this.
But we're
to
also
allow for
adding,
that. Excuse me?
we're also adding a larger number of students to the mix too.
In the
So-
schools we've talked to, it seems those sorts of concerns seem to work themselves out. Students adjust in terms of meeting those needs, because it's only 2 out of 4. For the student, it's only 1 out of 4 days.
Okay,
It's not like, if it were every day,
right.
that might be a problem. For that particular student, it's only 1 out of every 4 days. And in the schools that we've talked to, and we've talked to a number of different schools regarding this, that tends not to be a problem. That tends not to be an issue, although it's one we certainly have thought about.
Okay.
We really have. Are there any questions? Dr. Seeley?
One of the questions that's come up, I know, over the last number of weeks or months or years of this discussion has been continuity from one class to the next, and particularly with situations where there's like a snow day or something like that, so suddenly instead of 1 day, it's maybe 2 or 3 day lapses. And I just think, I know we've worked on this, but I think that one of the bridges that might help that is assignments and information in a grader. I know some teachers do it pretty well, in other cases it's not as efficient, but if we get web assignments up all the time, so kids who miss that would be able to pick up what the assignments were, or if they're out for a day, it'd be really helpful. It might help bridge some of that.
Very good point.
I did want to ask you, this was, I presume you're providing us with feedback from a group of people that you met in the science area, is that right? Can you just give me how did that go, and tell me a little bit about how that discussion was?
The focus group.
Well,
that's
the focus
all- that's
group.
all
I think it was the
is.
focus group,
Okay.
and I think the concern was that H and AP time frame. And, we sat back down and, with our team, and we thought about getting them that extra time, and that was the answer really that I think.
Have you talked with them about that again, or?
Oh yeah, we're gonna report out to them.
Tomorrow.
So tomorrow you go back and you talk to the teachers again?
Cabinet.
Yeah,
The cabinet,
we can,
I guess.
yeah. And then Jeff will also talk to them in their department meeting about it.
So you're going to be talking with them about this?
Yes.
What you're telling us tonight, and
Yes.
they may come back with other issues, and you may then have to address those issues
Yes.
also. Is that kind of the flow on this? Pardon?
Sometimes that does happen.
That's all right, that's a good thing, because it
Yeah.
normally works out the kinks early.
We clearly heard what they said in terms of time and tried to address it in what we think is an efficient and fair manner.
Okay.
Efficient and fair manner.
I'll be anxious to hear what they have to say the next time we get together. Pete?
Mr. Fowler?
2 questions. One, have we got a way to deal with the kids who want to take 2 lab sciences?
We have what we're gonna do with that. We have to hand schedule those kids. What we've thought about is making sure we know who those kids are, what their schedule is, and putting a morning science and an afternoon science for them, and crunching it together with the lunch. On the days, I was just actually talking with Jeff about this about an hour ago. On the days in which they have that, if it's on the same day that they're going to do a lab, we've got to figure out something for lunch for them. Where they're possibly gym study could be their lunch in the morning second period, or the second part of the time slot 2, or actually time slot 5. We can figure out something for them. So we do have to hand schedule those kids much differently. But we've come up with, we think, a solution by making sure that there's enough sections, finding out what classes those kids are taking, making sure there's an afternoon section and a morning section that when they butt up, those kids will be able to do that. We've definitely thought about that. In fact, that was a big discussion today.
Right, and right now there are about 45
45
kids
of those students
that have that profile.
And we're going to hand schedule them, make sure that we have it, and it can work.
And my second concern actually grows out of what you're planning to do with the H and the AP, and that is linking it back with the gym and taking the time away. And as Tom says, they're still going to get the mandated time that they need in gym, and that to me raises the question of whether or not this is the optimal schedule that we should have for gym, or whether in general we're devoting too much time to gym on this schedule for everyone other than those AP and H kids.
What will happen, if I can address that, what will happen is during the days when our kids, our AP and honors kids would have that lab, the other kids would have a study hall, okay, as they do now. It would be called, I guess we have to come up with another name now. We call it a lab study, because it's the kids who don't particularly have a lab during that period in physical education, so they have a study hall instead. Our kids would be getting studies, maybe once in the cycle or twice in the cycle. We'll have to work that out, because otherwise we don't have enough physical education teachers to deal contractually.
Okay, so we're going to have then, as I understand, phys ed spots on the schedule that will not be phys ed.
No, there'll be study halls for the kids.
Long distance question.
This is more of a suggestion that, first off, I couldn't read anything on those charts from over here. But it would be good if you had like different kinds of students, lay out this schedule and actually count the number of minutes each class, and do the same thing for teachers. It sounds like your science teacher is different than another teacher. But lay it out so that your whole day, you know how many periods and how many minutes in total at the bottom. Because I couldn't really follow it, from tonight. And I know that's going to come up. Somebody's going to ask a detailed question. Well, how many minutes is that, or how many prep periods? Now, find the 4 or 5 representative teacher configurations and do one chart for each one, and total it out.
Okay.
Just wanted to know if you think in this scheduling of the sizes of the labs is going to remain consistent and pretty much the same as they are now, the labs, or is there any impact on the size of the actual class?
That's a good question. It may be even easier, now that we're not linking science and phys ed to many, we may be able to balance it in an easier fashion. It will be easier to schedule.
What happens now in the current schedules, you could have a class, MJ class, period 2, 24 kids, but a period 4 with 13 kids, because of the way the slots fit. Here the slots rotate, and you don't see that issue that where a singleton could affect the number of kids in the class. So when we've run the schedule with a rotation, it's because the numbers just work out perfectly. Then you put the parameters we have in now, you could see the changes.
So you're balancing the schedule better on the same number of labs being offered, I guess?
There'll be more labs offered.
So that would drop for students, average students?
Does that change the number of teachers required?
Hopefully not. Hopefully not.
Well, let's keep talking about it.
The idea that in terms of number of teachers, especially with science, anything where you have a situation where a student is in a workstation, you don't want to have 29 kids in a 24-person station, and you also don't want to have 17 in a 24-person workstation. So what you try to do is you try to keep them as balanced. This type of schedule helps us balance class loads, class size loads better. Because I think, I'm going to say last year, I think I did gave out a report to the board on class sizes, and you could see that there are definite skews. Some classes are very small, and some large because of the way, they break down over the, singletons and the impact of other things. So utilizing them more efficiently should help cut down the number of additional personnel that's needed to implement the schedule. Right now, the way we're planning for next year with the budget is planning on the personnel needs that we have to accommodate anticipated student growth. We don't anticipate additional personnel needs as a result of the new schedule in the areas of the academics.
Okay. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you very much. We can get you a copy of this over email tomorrow, so you can have the actual PowerPoint. Apologize for not having it for you this evening.
For those of us who aren't steeped in the art of scheduling students, I think it's complicated and difficult to understand at times. So anything to bring it down to earth for
I
mere
know
mortals
it's
like
hard to
me.
conceptualize, but it really is quite elegant process. But what I would suggest is that, and I think I'd offered this last year as well, but I'd certainly like to repeat it, although I don't think I had any takers on it last year. As part of the curriculum committee or any subcommittee group meeting, as long as we're fewer than 6, I could certainly have, if you are willing to spend an hour or so, with us, hour and a half with us, we can give you more depth of understanding about how the nuances of this work than I think is practical to do, here in the evening at a board meeting, because it would take that much time to explain some of the nuances that take place as a result of the schedule. So if anyone would like it, I would certainly be available, and the staff would be available to assist with that.
You want to do that in a normal committee, as a special committee, or something like that?
In normal committee, a special committee. As I said, we certainly want people to understand.
Why don't we send out an email, see what the interest is, and then maybe we can have
Or maybe do it with curriculum, and then just document the issues for the rest of us.
Okay.
Could do that.
That's probably a better way, because then you can have a chance to think about it.
Are you in the curriculum committee also?
Yeah, sometimes you can
I may come to
think of good things after the meeting, but not during the meeting.
Yeah. All right. When we do that, we'll just do it in the curriculum committee, and then we'll document from there. Okay, with that, we've come to the end of the presentations. We'll go on to the first opportunity for public comment. This is time for the public to comment on, it's limited to agenda items. Please state your name and address. Comments are limited to 5 minutes.
There you go.
Mr. Wilpont.
Mr. Wilpont.
Welcome back. We've missed you.
I only took a week off.
No, you were gone for 2 meetings.
I know. I wanted to.
We're counting.
I wanted to enjoy myself. Jay Wilpont for Mr. Binder, 75 Round Top Road, Warren, New Jersey. I'm glad you're having the focus groups. I'd like to see some focus groups with parents and others to be able to talk to things. A lot of just talking to the students and inside is a good thing, but I think it's worth getting some other input. When the administration last year gave a slide presentation introducing this, they started off at the first page with a list of about 12 different school districts that offered this program. And a lot of very good districts, Chatham, Governor Livingston, Ridgewood, Morris, a lot of really good districts. So obviously they're able to figure out how to make this work. So knowing that we're going to do this, I want to make this work. So the first thing I did is looked at the state report cards and found that every one of those school districts have more instructional time than our district has. We have one of the lowest in the state at 6 hours and 45 minutes. Some of the other districts have up to 40 minutes more instructional time than us, that being Riverdale. So one of the reasons that they can make lunch work, one of the reasons they can make the APs work, one of the reasons they can make, which I haven't mentioned yet, which is BC Calculus, which is losing 60 hours of instructional time in this, is that they've got this extra instructional time that we don't have here. So one of the things that I think the district really needs to look at it, especially since you're in negotiation times, is how are you going to see whether we can increase the time of the day? Because you're trying to make some things work. You're trying to put 2 pounds of stuff into a 1 pound can, and you'll figure out how to make some of these things work, like lunch or whatever, but you're going to make, I would say, the quality of living be very difficult on the kids, half moving into lunch, half moving out of lunch. The kids that are coming far away won't get in line. I agree with Peter. It's going to be hard for either side to get the lunch. The kids in the morning have an equally hard time. They want to get to the lunch early so they can get their stuff to get out early. So I think, again, one of the reasons I think some of the other school districts that you've talked to make it work is they have a lot more time in the school day, between 5 and 20% more time than we do. So you've got to figure out how, is there a way, especially since you're in negotiations, and obviously this is an issue for negotiations, is to take all of the time that you've got and figure out how to get the time you're going to need to make this work. Because it's going to be tough. I mean, no district that I saw on the list had less time than us that was offering this program. So if you want to make the program work, I think we need to figure out how to beg, borrow, and steal more time, not steal it from lunches or whatever. BC Calculus, I know you could probably do the lunch thing with them, but if I know a lot of students, they've got 2 periods of science and a BC Calculus, and so you're talking about not just 2 lunches, but even 3 lunches where those kids are being affected. And so, yes, where you've got to deal with the majority of the people and make sure that the majority of students have opportunities. You still don't want to make sure you're hurting a piece of your student body. And lastly, I was sort of worried when Fran said that there wouldn't be any more teachers for instructional, and I think that you probably get that from breakage from the 6 period versus 8 period. But you got a lot of people in the arts, the students that can't take the arts and are taking study because they can't fit any of the electives into their schedule. So you do need teachers. They may be an English teacher teaching Shakespeare, or they may be a math teacher teaching number theory, or they may be an art teacher teaching something else. But you don't have enough teachers to teach what you've got. And so if you really want to make some of these things work, you need to make sure you're increasing your if you go 2 years, let's say you had 150 new kids this year, maybe 100 next year, 250 kids, which is the size of a nice elementary school, and you don't add any new net teachers, something isn't working. And what gets affected is the kids' courses. We're adding all these nice courses, but we're not necessarily providing, the board's not providing the teachers that are needed to teach those classes. So I think it's great you'll try to make this thing work, but the devil's in the details, and try to make things better and make them better, not make some things better and some things worse.
Thank you, sir.
Jay, can I just make one comment on the lunch? I think 1 or 2 meetings ago we did a full presentation on the lunch, and we'd be happy to share it with you.
Yeah.
That there are various areas that we're going to use that we're currently not using now.
Yeah, I figured you did. That's why I sort of did raise it a lot, because I figured the last meeting, since you dealt with science here, my guess is you have to have science in the last lunch in the last one.
And you did say 60 hours?
Yeah, because the kids, every day, they don't, the BC Calculus kids don't have lunch. So that's 5
Maybe eight in the
days
classroom.
at 22 minutes, that's 110 minutes a week that they're not getting. So you probably can get one of those back, and
Okay.
you may get some things with 0 periods or end of day or whatever, you can get some of it back. But those are things that you guys, there's some ways around it, I don't know if you can get all of it, but you can get some of it.
If they eat. Mike, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah,
Just saying,
sure.
if
Is
you
that
can
okay?
provide clarification on this one point.
If they eat lunch, if they do the whole lunch period, 42 minutes now, 40 minutes, whatever it'll be next year, they can get that time back if they actually eat in the classroom with the teacher. I mean, currently they have a lunch, they just don't go to the lunch room. Would be the same thing next year. We could figure out a schedule in which they would go to the math class certain days of the week so that they would eat their lunch in there and get that time back. So we can't, it's roughly about 50 hours because you don't count after the AB, the
Maybe
AP
you two
test.
could get together and report back to clarify
So
that.
we can get them that
Simple
time.
language for me.
Yeah, we can get them that time back, and that's actually part of our focus group in January.
You just have to figure out, because you got, those are usually the kids that are also taking the sciences.
Right.
And so you can't
No,
overschedule,
you
let's
can't,
say, in
right.
44 minutes of lunch for those kids.
Yeah, that's what I say, we have to hand schedule those 45
Yeah, I know,
kids.
it's gonna be, it'll be interesting, but
It is in the detail. It's always in the detail. Any other comments from public? We have one, so Kathleen, you're the
You're
other
only
public.
other public.
Okay, with that, we'll move on to board discussion. 2 items, our favorite 2, board goals and board self-evaluation. I have handed out in your packet 2 items. The first is I made a good faith effort at consolidating down all the feedback I had gotten, which I think you've seen, you saw it last time, to 4 goals for the board. 1 having to do with planning, 1 having to do with education, 1 financial, and 1 governance. I would like you to take a look at these. I haven't received any other feedback from the first meeting from the first time I issued these, not this set, but the prior set on this. And what I'd like to do is at the next meeting on the 17th is adopt this set or a revision to these based on feedback that we might get at that meeting. Now, just to walk you through it, the first one, which has to do with planning, is really 2 parts. One is strategic, and the second is long-range planning. Strategic is done with a lot of stakeholders with the purpose of setting your mission and your vision and where do you want to go overall. It's more of a long visionary kind of statements, as well as making sure we're aligned with our stakeholders, community members and staff and students in the whole mix. From that then spring long-range plans that would be specific towards implementation of that strategic plan, and we would do that then in combination with the demographics, whatever we need to understand the student growth, facilities changes, things like that. And would include things like the facilities planning activities, which would cover maintenance and upgrades and replacements for a long period of time. I'd normally see these for 5 years. Financial planning, a multi-year forecast, curriculum planning and transportation. There may be others in there. I'm not sure I was comprehensive. These are the ones that everybody mentioned. So that was the first one. The second one has to do with education and is focused primarily with kind of 2. One is an overall educational philosophy of a community-friendly school environment that really reaches out and provides increased opportunities for our student population and pushing the envelope perhaps in what we're offering the student population in terms of curriculum, and not just for the honors but for all the students. And the second part of that then has to do with the topic that we just have here. It had to do with the implementation of whatever scheduling algorithm or whatever we choose to do at the end of this analysis period that's going to help benefit the students. The third one has to do with the budget. It's the financial. It has to do with the implementation of budget in a manner that is successful. By that I mean one which engages the stakeholders so that at the end of the day when we go to vote sometime in April on the budget, or actually gets voted on by the voters in April, and we vote on it sometime in February or March, approve it. that we have had sufficient insight and understanding of the budget and what's in the numbers so that we can feel like we've got confidence in the numbers and we can go out and support it in an open and honest manner. Which means we're going to have a lot of discussions on budget, I think, in the next 2 to 3 months. The last one I wanted to put in there, it has to do with governance, and governance in a loose sense, but it's also focused exclusively on NJ CUSAC. I think it's important for us to get in front of this and make sure that we have our ducks in order. And we've done what we need to do from a standpoint of addressing the CUSAC reporting responsibilities, which I believe will probably come up next year, and I want to make sure that we're ready for that next year. Probably about this time is when we'd have to be filing the reports, or maybe before this. Part of that is the board self-evaluation, which is a nice segue into my next topic, because that's a big part of the governance structure, or at least one component of the governance structure, which is the board self-evaluation. So please take a look at these goals and see if there's anything you say, wow, this is really nutty, or this is really something that we want to expand on, or this is something we'd like to take out. I know they're pretty high-level goals. I accept that. But remember, it's from here that we can kind of gather around and say, well, at least these are the areas that we really do want to focus on from a goal standpoint for the board. Now, part of CUSAC, from that I'm going to segue into the next thing, which has to do with the board self-evaluation. The annual evaluative process that we are expected to undertake here, according to CUSAC, includes not only the CSA evaluation, but it also includes in items 6 and 7 in this chart, which was handed out to you, by the way, in the blue notes. For those of you who I'll be honest with you, I missed this in my first read of these. I read it electronically, but I didn't catch this one. It's in the back of it. It's a spreadsheet, which is titled New Jersey Quality Single Accountability Continuum. And I really would like to find the person who came up with that name, by the way. It's on that, and it's on items. It's on the on the bottom of that. It's page 14 of 27. These are things that we're going to be evaluated on, and item 6 of that is the School Board or Advisory Board annually undertakes a self-evaluation process which reflects the highest priorities given to student achievement. And the second item of that, I'll come back to that one because there's something I don't really understand. The second one of that is that the School Board Advisory Board's self-evaluation process includes a professional development improvement plan directed towards increasing knowledge and skills in policymaking and governance for the members of the board. There's some skill associated with interpreting that, and I would like to talk to Gwen Thornton again on this topic. There are certain courses that we are going to, we have to develop a professional development plan for this board as an entity, and I'm not quite sure how that's done, but there are certain courses that we could claim credit for, and it would then go towards our compliance reporting. There's certain courses, like negotiations kind of courses, that apparently don't fit into that professional development plan. So we'll have to figure that out. That's part of what we're going to have to be doing. Yeah, good point. Thank you. So those things are, from a CUSAC standpoint, are actually very important, and they kind of highlight the need that we're expected to kind of go through this annual retrospective, or introspective rather, not retrospective, introspective evaluation of who we are and how we function. We did, as you remember, we went through 3 sessions this summer where we did a lot of that activity. We've gone through a fair amount of self-evaluation already, working with Dr. Baza this summer, and the feedback that he provided us, and that we provided to him, and the discussions that we had then, and from that then some of the actions that we tried to undertake. So that then is kind of where we are. We kind of, CUSAC has rolled along. We did the work with Dr. Baza, and now we're about to embark upon this last phase of this, not really the last, but kind of a developmental phase, which is our board self-evaluation. In your packet is a standard New Jersey School Board Association form. If you can pull it out, you can, it's 12 pages long. We will send this to you electronically tomorrow, if it hasn't already been done. Okay? This form is what we need to fill out as individuals to give us our own interpretation of how we think we are as a board performing. So you can go through this, and there's, I think, 8 sections, 9 sections in it. Each section has 8, 9 questions, and then you basically rate us, the board, and then yourself. So you do 2 things. You rate the board, and then you rate yourself as you think you are on the board. Okay? And that then is the board self-evaluation. The person who's going to do the consolidation of all the feedback is Gwen Thornton from the New Jersey School Board Association. And it takes her about 2 to 3 weeks to do that process, depending upon her workload and the other things that are going on in her business at that point in time. And so the plan is you have this tonight. This is the first time you've seen the full, I think, the full form sent out. I would like to get this sent back. There's 2 ways to get it back. I don't want to see I don't want to see your copy. You send it back anonymously, okay? And it goes to, on the first page here, it has Gwen Thornton's email address if you want to send it back electronically. So go to the first page where it says Watchung Hills Regional Board Board Self-Evaluation 2007. Second paragraph, last line, says Gwen Thornton at njsba.org. Okay, does everybody see that? I want to make sure we're good. So you can email it to Gwen, and we'll send it out to you electronically so you can do that. Or alternatively, you can use the old U.S. Postal Service and send it to the address that's listed there, NJSBA 413 West State Street, P.O. Box 909, Trenton, okay? I would put that, attention Gwen Thornton, by the way. What I would like to do is to get these back to us, get them to her by January the 7th. That's the Saturday, the Monday of the second week of January.
A board meeting day.
It's a board meeting day, so thank you. So you can remember that, okay? So if you can get them back to Gwen, that gives you the holidays to kind of, everybody's gonna leave this meeting and forget about it. Okay, so we'll send down a reminder to you. All right, we'll try
What do you say?
to re-energize you. So come the first week of January, then we're going to ask you then to make sure that you get this thing filled out. So you're going to have that whole week and that weekend, okay? To really, because everybody's going to come back at the start of the new year. We're going to be re-energized. We're going to feel like really get into all these things. We're going to immediately jump in and fill out these self-evaluations. So with that, then you can have that week and that weekend then to fill this out, and you can email it back to Gwen, or you can mail it to her. Okay? Do you have any questions on this? I didn't go through the form in detail. I'm not sure it's needed, but I'd be glad to. Yes, Laura.
I remember when Gwen gave her presentation, weren't there certain categories that if we don't, if we don't meet, we get, right,
Yes.
zero. Now, this form goes into that.
This form goes to one part of that in that there's I think there were 9 sections of that, which has to do with school board governance. All right, and this fits into one part of that. Do you have those 9? One of them is, for instance, policy. For instance, if we don't have certain policies in place, or we haven't been reviewing them appropriately, we can lose credit for that. One of them has to do with ethics, board ethics. One of them has to do with the evaluation process of both the CSA and the board. One of them has to do with financial accountability. So there's like 9 of those subsections. And this is one of those. And within that, and I think these are the questions where they go. Oh, here it is.
Into that section.
It's this section here. This is the annual evaluative process, Laura, that's in the questions here that go to that part of the governance discussion, okay, that you have here. Item 1, does the school board have a policy in place to evaluate the CSA on an annual basis? If we answer no to that, then we lose about 11, it's 9, there's about 9 questions here, I think, is that right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, we lose points, okay. And then if we answer no to the next one, we lose another set. You only have to miss 2 questions before you get down into the state's going to be willing to come in, or the state's going to be looking for you to create an action plan in that area. if you get down to 80% of a response rate on any one category, that category, you have to develop an action plan in response to that. If you get down to 50%, the state's more generous with their time, and they're willing to not only want the action plan, they're willing to come in and help you write the action plan, okay?
They're so generous with their time.
I thought so too. So item 2 there is the school board annually reviews and revises as necessary an evaluative instrument used in the evaluation of the CSA. So you can go through all these questions, and I just jumped you, when I did it, Lou, I jumped you to questions 6 and 7, which have to do with this specific process here, which has to do with the self-evaluation. Okay.
There are many others of these DPRs that we have to be in compliance with as well.
DPR?
District performance review, that matrix. Okay. We only shared, I only included these particular pages as they were applicable to this activity.
How close are we to, there's never completion, but we will be comfortable with our policies?
We have
We've made really great progress, honestly, we have.
We have
more to do, but we've made great
well, as you know, you're always working on it. So we have about...
It's never completed, but there's a point at which you say, okay, nothing new has come up right now, and we're all right for the moment. I wonder how close we are to that all right for the moment.
Most of our mandated, in fact, our
mandated
mandated
ones
policies are
in.
done.
There's about 15 that we're still, 15 or 20 that we're still trying to get through the process right now.
And those are interpretive. In other words, the board, the particular ones that Paul is speaking of are ones that I think we talked about, the inappropriate staff conduct policy that we went back and forth on a little bit. Those are things that have more of a subjective view of the board members and basically the board's stamp on those policies, whereas many of the mandated policies are a little bit easier because they're mandated. There are certain things that must be in there. It's not as much, I guess, flexibility. So we're in a good place with them. Strauss Esme, our provider of policy, assistance and services. What happens, Sandy, is that once we get everything to that substantial completion point, they prepare an online document for us as well as a physical document. And then as things get changed in the regulations and laws, they send us automatic notices and updates so that when we receive those, I would bring it to the policy chair, have a policy committee meeting. That information would be discussed and shared, and then our policy would reflect the new information. So that's basically our mechanism to sort of keep us on top of it so we don't get so far behind as we were. Because we were pretty behind.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes, we were not
pretty behind.
So pretty reasonable right now.
Yeah.
And beyond that, Sandy, the stupidity of CUSAC is that as soon as we get to the point you want to be at, then we get a 0 from CUSAC
Yeah,
because
right.
we're not reviewing our policies.
Yeah.
Good point, Peter. We get a 0 for all
The other-
our effort, yeah.
The other thing about CUSAC, just so you're aware of it, is that it's a 3-year look back. And so we could be great now, but it really depends on what did you do a year ago, 2 years ago, and 3 years ago. And so we have to provide that level of data. So it could be, so if we didn't have a policy in effect that was critical 2 years ago, we get dinged on that. And you get to answer no on that question. So, it's a real tough criteria. So if again, January 7th, get back the self-evaluation form. Okay, send it to Gwen Thornton or mail it to Gwen, and we'll have out to you by email tomorrow the electronic copy of the self-evaluation form. Any questions on that?
Paul, can I back up to the previous topic?
Mm-hmm.
With the draft of our board goals.
Yes.
Now, I assume at this point, this is public information, we're discussing this at a public meeting. I mean,
they're drafts, so
it's only a draft, but
right.
I think it's significant work that the board has put together and everybody has given their input. At what point in time can we start giving this out to the public?
After
as
they're
a press
adopted.
release or-
I would say after it's adopted. I'd say right now it's a draft form, so we'll wait until we get it.
There's
I'd
been
throw
no
that out.
discussion about either. We've given things to Paul, but there's been no discussion about this.
So we'll wait till the next meeting after we've had our discussion on it. Okay. Any other questions? All right, with that, we'll move on to the action items. Does anybody want to pull any of the A's, A1 through A7?
Hearing none, I will move A1 through A7.
Second that.
Any discussion on A1 through A7?
Okay.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Aye.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yep.
Mrs. Beckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Aye.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
There are no Bs, there are Cs. Anybody
Can I
want to
pull
pull any of the-
C2?
Okay, C2 is being pulled.
I wanted to pull B1, but there isn't one.
Okay, any other Cs anybody want to pull to be voted on separately?
Then I would like to
Can you
move
make a motion?
C1, C3, and C4.
Second.
Discussion? Can I get a
Yes.
roll call vote?
Mr. Binder?
Aye.
Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Falzarano?
Yes.
Mrs. Beckner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Pete, do you want to
Item
move
C2.
Do you want to move C2 and then we can discuss it?
I will move C2.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have C2 has been moved and seconded. Discussion?
Well, first of all, I am interested in hearing what the views were that were expressed at the curriculum committee. I also have a particular question regarding the qualification regarding contracting that we're looking for in this person. Just, I'm not sure what the need is that we have someone who has experience and understanding of public contracting law for our director of operations position.
So Pete, you want to?
I can address that one.
Okay, thanks, Tim.
The need for public contracting is that particular position purchases quite a bit of materials, services. They are also responsible in preparing bid specifications. Knowledge of purchasing laws.
Bid specs for like supplies or
Bid
for what?
specs, for example, we just had a bid go out for boiler repairs and cleaning. I had to actually sit quite a while with our maintenance supervisor right now to go through exactly what needs to be in the bid specs and how to make it tight enough to make sure that we get a quality.
Okay, thank you, Tim.
Sure.
I have a question. Didn't we release, eliminate this position 2 or 3 years ago?
No, well, we eliminated the director of, or supervisor of buildings and grounds. This is a substantially different emphasis.
To me, this is a pretty good job description as an assistant business administrator. And my personal feeling, and then there are people that I've talked to, who believe that this position, if needed, should be buildings, not buildings and grounds, because as Tim and I have talked a number of times, there are tremendous conflicts, potential for tremendous conflicts and numerous conflicts as you have a person who becomes in charge of buildings and grounds who has no knowledge, no background, and any experience in operation of the grounds as needed and when it's needed. If we have problems, and I hear we have problems in this building between, within the Buildings and Grounds department, I believe there's a better way and a more efficient way of straightening those problems out than creating a position that's going to cost us $85,000 or better to start with. And I think if we are in need of personnel, we'd be better served to hire more workers and less administrators in this case. I think we can address the issues in a straightforward manner. And it just, after 43 years of living in it, I've never seen this position work in its in the way it's envisioned. It does not work. We are not going to solve the problems that we are attempting to do. We are just skirting the issues. And again, if this was a position that says buildings, fine, to a certain degree. I am not in favor of this, and I can't explain it anything other than you have to have lived it to know the problems and see where they fall short for whatever way it's presented. And again, to me, this is an assistant business administrator's position, not buildings and grounds position.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
Pete, could you just, I only lived through part of this, not nearly as much as you've lived through, but I'm just trying to understand when you say you could sort of see this for buildings, but when you combine buildings and grounds, it doesn't make sense to you.
Because it becomes,
and I'm not sure.
Because personalities become involved, conflicts become involved, priorities and visions are different, and we're going to have people reporting or requesting permission to do things, fit into someone else's budget. The items and areas needed to make two entities work together, and it just doesn't work. Believe me, it does not work. And Timmy can tell you, he can tell you the war stories, the horror stories that he's heard and seen in his many years, and I know he supports this position. So, but on paper, it's great. In reality, it does not work. And it's just for me to list item and item and verbatim every area and potential conflict, I'm not prepared to do that, other than to tell you that this is not going to solve our problems as I heard the problems presented and know the potential problems out there. This thing does not say anything about if he's in charge of buildings and grounds, what are his work hours. He's going to go to meetings with the borough people. Is he going to be here if he's in charge of the building when we have performances, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, all performances? If he's in charge of the building, he should be here to make sure that everything is working properly. And when he's preparing a budget for the fields and maintenance of the fields, his budgetary or his vision or lack of knowledge of what is needed, is he going to take the recommendation of the people who are making these recommendations? Probably not, and not in all cases. We have it becomes the same old territorial war. You're stepping on my toes. That's my area, and who has the final say other than the business administrator, the superintendent, or the board? It doesn't work that way in reality. It just does not work. Okay. There's no one who's been in the trenches other than myself, and I say that. I've seen it for 43 years. It does not work.
Pete, I'm
Yes.
tempted to side with you because I think you've been very persuasive. But what does work? What do you think should be done? Maybe we shouldn't get into that here, but you know, I think we need to, in addition to maybe not voting for this, as you and I might not.
What I would envision is a person in charge of the buildings. If it were to expand buildings and grounds, not have veto power over work assignments, work duties of people on the outside. If people are needed to be transferred from one area to another, it's only with the permission of the other people who are directly involved. And it goes back to athletics, but it's more than athletics. That's what everybody always throws down. It's always athletics. It's not. In preparation for the field budgets, the athletic director says, I need 10 tons of topsoil. I need this. I need 3 people to work this. And all of a sudden, the guy in the building, because he's buildings and grounds, says, no, I'm only going to give you 2 guys. I mean, he can't, it doesn't work. If people are assigned to work athletic events, And I had this story the other day. I talked to Dr. So-and-so, who's the athletic director at the nearby school. He had to go to the buildings and grounds person and said, I need X number of people to work the football games, custodial people to work. No, you can get one. What, are you kidding me, one? So there's just so many things that intertwine and intermingle. I would say if it goes buildings and grounds, he has to have the okay of taking people off grounds before he assigns them to another area. He has to accept the recommendations and the requests of the athletic director or whoever is in charge to man the position or the events as needed. And on certain days, if as we do now, people come from outside to do lunches, if somebody says, well, I need 2 guys from inside to go outside, that they go. It doesn't work that way, though. It just doesn't happen. But those are the things that need to be done. The budgetary preparation. If the guy says, if somebody says, I need a new lawnmower or whatever I need, he doesn't have veto power over that because he's not there. He doesn't see what's going on. And it's just...
Sometimes you bring up a point. Maybe the answer to that is not necessarily this position. Maybe it's just the way it gets organized and how it gets communicated to people. Because you say as long as there's certain elements in there, like avoidance of veto power and things like that, where they deny access or deny resources, there are ways managerially to handle that pretty effectively. Split budgets, co-reporting relationships, and co-accountability. I mean, you can do that kind of thing.
That's what I said. Those are the things that need to be incorporated. Not one person have veto power over the other. And as I said, if someone, and in this case it just happens to be the athletic director, says I need 3 guys outside, and only 1 guy from outside shows up, he says I need another person from inside to go out. Well, then the guy's got to go. And it's not just, make do. Because we do now, we take from outside inside, there's got to be. And the other problem, and let's face it, and I don't care if there's anybody here or not, since we're in public, we have a problem with personnel. We are not willing to address it as I believe we should, directly, head on. Straighten them out. We don't need a third party to be the hatchet man, to be the gun, or whatever. I believe we can handle it without that position. And again, as I read this, I said it looks more like an assistant business manager as opposed to buildings and grounds. And for all the architectural work and things that are going to be done, after this building project reaches completion, how much of that bid writing and things are going to be that, and much of the job? What is this person going to do? And how is he going to, work? What is his daily work schedule going to be? Mm-hmm. And again, like I said, if he's in charge of buildings and grounds, is he going to be here on the nights of the plays, the nights of the performances, and the nights of everything? And in fact, if he's in charge of buildings and grounds, every night there's a basketball game. The athletic director's inside the gym taking care of the athletics. Is he going to be supervising the building? Is he going to be here Friday nights at football games, supervising the grounds? I don't see that. I don't hear that. It becomes an expanded position, not a limiting one. What is his work day? 8 to 4? Or is it 8 to 9:30, 10 o'clock at night when the last custodian leaves this building after a football game? Is he going to be here on Sundays if we go to a buildings and grounds person when we have a $20 million facility outside and we have on any given night, Saturday night, not a custodian on the grounds? And yet we're giving our field, and it's unsupervised, to local people, all who mean well and are good intentions. But we don't have a custodian here. Is he going to be here supervising the buildings and grounds as the athletic director is when we have any school sanction and function? Well, if we open the school and we give our grounds, is this person in charge of buildings and grounds going to be here? I don't hear it. I don't see it. So much of what needs to be done. Yeah, all of these things need to be done. But I believe they can be done without the creation of that $85,000 job. And if we do go to a buildings person or a combination, there's got to be a better way of defining the working relationship, which you said.
I
It
mean,
goes
I
to
think
Bunny.
that can be handled. I'm not sure if that addresses all the concerns. I've worked in matrix organizations all my life, and I've reported to 3 people at times, and there's ways to deal with that so you get good accountability, and that can be managed. Lou?
What we were discussing, and, Pete brought up a lot of good points, is that we have a lot of good people on site too. And they have visions and they have opportunities to get stuff. And we were talking about this a lot. And I think there's just, like, Nick sees a lot of things, Chris and Russ, all these guys are working out there doing their thing. If you put somebody over the top of them, are they going to drive a spike even further through them? Or are we going to be able to work together? And I don't think this defines like what Pete's looking for is an exact job description of what's going to happen when he commingles with all these other people underneath him. Is it going to work? Are they going to work together, or is he going to just drop the hammer on what he wants to do? We do need somebody, as far as I'm concerned, to over Russ and the building facility to do a lot of this stuff that has to be done. And I think what Pete's getting at is does he need to be on the outer side of it, where we have 2 people, the AD and the outside grounds person, who do a tremendous job and know the outside facility probably better than anybody, and just have this individual work on the facility, the building, the structure, the mainframe of the facility, and make sure that the building is running sound. And is he going to be here on the weekends, like Pete said? The amount of hours Russ and his people put in here is unbelievable. And we have to address the dead wood that is making it rough on them. So there's a lot of things here. That was a lot of the discussion that we kicked back and forth.
In the co-curricular?
Yeah.
Okay. Pete?
I'm hearing 2 very different types of concerns. One address things that I totally agree should be in a job description, including when do we expect this person to be here, what are his responsibilities as far as that. The other that Paul alluded to as management type issues, and I would say from the description Pete gave us that it's a how this position is going to fit in with our existing people. I'm not sure that necessarily goes into a job description, but I am sure that we as a district should have an understanding before we go forward and hire somebody as to what our view is, or the administration's view is, of how that should work out, so that it is very clear, so we don't get into a situation where someone's trying to, creating more conflicts than we've got already. So I'm wondering, in view of that, whether it makes any sense, and I guess I'm asking you, Fran, to have the Personnel Committee maybe spend some more time on this and address these issues of how this would work with what we've got, and the issue of what are we really expecting. Is this a person that we're going to expect to be seeing, not 24/7, but any of the hours any of us are generally here, including you?
Yeah, and we're here a lot.
I know, more than any of us.
Don't get me wrong. I do feel we need an individual.
Yeah, we need this caliber
We have
person.
the amount of work, and to be honest with you, Russ, it's not his
Yeah,
cup
and
of tea.
I
So-
don't disagree that we need somebody over Russ. But I
don't
guess
want-
what we're getting at is this the right position over Russ? Is the
Right,
question
and I don't
raised.
want to see any problems arise, because right now the machine is running pretty good and we're seeing a lot of things getting done, and I want to see that continue. So as long as this person, or whether we have to spell it out or whatever, we have an agreement that this is the way it's going to work, and it's not going to keep these people from doing what they've done so far and continue to do it without getting handcuffed. So,
But the inevitable human
It's a win.
condition
Are we in Oz?
is that when you come to a new job, you see all the things that ought to be changed. You're going to start to do it.
yeah.
The other thing that I heard Pete say, or maybe just touch on, is should the buildings and grounds report to different people and have separate budgets that can be independently justified, rather than somebody arbitrarily cutting one or the other. And I'll just leave it at that. I think you raised a good question, Pete.
I think,
Yeah, just to address some of the things, because Peter and I have had some conversation on it, and we don't totally agree on the issues that he raised, and I'll just give you some of the take that I have in my experiences. Well, first of all, the complex is not simple. This is a 400,000 square foot complex with complicated heating units, air conditioning units, electrical. The codes themselves that a school board is responsible for are not simple. The code, if you look at the code books, and we had a fire code official here today, they're not simple. They're very complicated. So just the maintenance of the facility itself, forget about the grounds, the facility is an enormous task, and you need someone who has these type of credentials. You have to have that here. You know, years ago the school was not quite as large before the construction, and maybe you can get away with someone with lesser skills. I don't think you can do that now. Again, the building itself, just forget about the grounds, the building itself is very complicated. And in terms of after the construction, there's plenty of work for them to do. Maintaining this facility takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of planning. And that's the thing that if you want to save money over time, routine maintenance, planning, those type of things can save you a referendum that you didn't have to take if you took care of, you didn't have to go after if you took care of the equipment the way it should be taken care of. Now, I couldn't emphasize enough the need to work with code officials and those type of things to work together and make sure the place is safe. And when I look at this position, and you know, in a sense, I do agree with what Peter said, is referring to it in your eyes as an assistant business administrator, because that's the person who's so close to me. There's no question about it. That person is my eyes and ears on the facility and the outside as well. So the need for that person in this district is there. And I don't know if Dr. Rader had said that to you as a board. I can tell you he did with me. And so before he even got here, he mentioned that. So the two of us, and Bob has significant experience, both see the need for it.
in buildings and grounds, it was discussed extensively in buildings and grounds, the need for a position like this. This is not, if you noticed in the certification area, if it were someone that we were thinking of as an assistant BA, they would not require the educational facilities manager licensure. So that's, and our heads are not in that venue at all, just to make that perfectly clear.
But let me speak to Timmy, his points. I've said to you, Tim, on a number of occasions, conceptually, I agree with what the position needs. My feeling is it should be two positions, right, not one with control over the other, because that person is not going to be there, doesn't know, and isn't going to do it the way we want it done. And we went through the last 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Louis was there, part of it. He saw it. Bernie, you heard it day after day, day after day. Your phone never stopped ringing. It has stopped a little bit now. Things have gotten better. So my feeling is two positions, and neither has control over the other. The controlling person is you and you, or the controlling people are you and you. Equal, co-working, equal positions, not one over there, because it does not work.
And I'll just speak to that point because I was going to go down that road. Okay. And the reason, and one of the things,
I just want to move this along.
Okay, and I'll try to be brief. One of the things that was obvious when I first got here and looked at the staffing is that there is a divide between inside and outside guys. And the need for a consolidation like what we're proposing here is to bring those two groups together, because we don't have enough people here where we can have inside and outside guys. We need to have them all working together, whether they be inside or outside. It's purely efficiency, it's purely unity. And right now, we don't have that.
But we can have that. When you have two co-equal positions, and on any given day, we bring people outside to do inside work, but on a snow day, a blizzard day, we may need the inside people to go outside.
Agreed.
So therefore, we can do the job, but yet avoid less conflict.
I've got to get some other people engaged in this conversation real quick.
I
Jerry?
just wanted to ask a question as to what he's seen in other districts. I mean, in particular, those of the larger districts with comparable type facilities. Have you seen what other districts are doing or how they're handling this type of work and situation?
I can only, yeah, I can speak of the ones where I was, and certainly some of the ones in the area, but they do have a position similar to this. They don't divide it like that. They have a central figure controlling the grounds and the maintenance.
Laura?
How many inside people and how many outside people do we have?
I'm an outside person.
I think we have all 10 altogether.
And how is that divided? Is it?
It's roughly half and half, I think. Or is it a little bit
4
more
and
on the
6.
inside? More on the inside.
4 and 6. 4 outside, 6 inside.
6 inside, 4 outside? That's how.
4.
Take
Choking
time.
on my
Did you have
cookie.
another question?
4 and 4 outside. And
4 outside, 6 inside.
Yeah, I just got the wrong hole.
That's a water.
Who knows how to do a Heimlich maneuver?
Okay, so I get for trying to talk
But
and eat.
Peter's right. There's only been one side of that working. And we have to have someone to be able to get them together. And when they need it outside, they go outside. When they're inside, they help each other. And right now, it's not going both ways.
What do we have a motion and we have a resolution that's been moved and seconded. We're in a discussion mode on this. Does somebody want to call a question on this? Where are we here on this? Do you want to table it?
I want to ask another question
Go
before we
ahead.
call a question. Tim, maybe, or Fran, maybe somebody can answer this, but getting into this question of whether or not there should be 2, right now, I don't know who makes the decision, okay? More importantly, I don't know who should make the decision if there's a conflict between what somebody wants outside and somebody wants inside. And third, I don't know whether under this, that resolves it, and this makes that person the king or not. So
Well-
that goes to whether or not this is the right,
Job description.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, if I can reclaim my voice here. Basically, what we have is, Peter is concerns about the sort of 2 separate countries, wanting to maintain that. Having been here 7.5 years, I remember when things did not look as nice as they do outside now. They look much better. They look fantastic. It's because we have a very good groundsman and we have a very good supervisor for those groundsmen. There have been times when the inside guys have not helped the outside guys. There have been times when the outside guys have not helped the inside guys. There's been a bit of a friction between them. I don't know how that developed, but over time it has. I know Nick has a lot of pride and ownership of the way his fields look, because when we have teams come here, we want the facility to look good. We don't want it to look shabby. I don't want it to look shabby. Speaking to Paul's point, excuse me, about the working relationship, budgeting and reporting, it would almost be the same as if I said, Jeff is the director of technology, yet what he does has no interface with the director of curriculum and instruction. They have to be 2 separate countries. When we sit around the table as a group of administrators, and we have to make decisions about budget, about other priorities, we make them as a team. In this situation, it's the same.
Nobody disagrees with that.
The person who is in charge of operations has to oversee. I cannot believe the cookie is still stuck in my throat. That God punished me for eating the cookie because I've been on a diet. The idea that there is not a single reporting mechanism for the operation. This is a huge complex. It is very complex. Tim hit it right on the head. It has not been managed properly for many years. We've been band-aiding a lot of issues. And we're lucky that they're good people. That, you know, the outside guy, the head outside guy is a good guy, and the head inside guy is a good guy. But there's been dead wood in both areas, quite frankly. Not as much recently, but in the past. So the idea that this person, and that we can differentiate, as Tim in charge directly and me more indirectly, that we can make this look like what it needs to look like so that everybody gets what they need out of the position. You see, follow what I'm saying? But this is what I said this to you a couple of days ago.
I agree with what you're saying.
Let her finish. Just let her finish.
And what
Thank
I'm
you.
saying here is that we have, nobody, let's put it this way, no one is king of the castle, or queen for that matter, of the castle. We all have to share in the pot of the resources that we have. And we don't want to see anything suffer. We want to see things maintained. One of the things we have to get on here is a regular maintenance program. You know, a regular, everything has to be standardized, regular, and been given a regular cycle. We haven't had that.
I'm not disagreeing with anything you say. Mike, I'm sorry.
Yeah,
But-
okay.
but
I'll finish
the
joking. No,
Are
go
you
ahead.
done?
I'm good. I'm
But
good.
the bottom line is, if we can do this better and more efficiently, with 2 people, 2 positions.
Can I just sit down? Let's just, this has been moved and seconded. It's on the, is there any more discussion on this?
Well, I've been very quiet tonight, and I don't even know why, but I think Fran needs to keep quiet for a minute so that her
My voice is
friends can
offensive.
But Pete's been around a long time too, and he knows that we've had a problem, and it's been a personnel problem. And it goes back, I would say, the last 3 buildings and grounds people. There was a time the economy was very strong in construction. We could not get anybody other than the man who probably should have been sweeping the floors at one point, and an apartment house manager of 4 apartments. You know, so we were not getting quality. And during those years, that's when we really hit bottom. And the school looked at the personnel that was hiring. I used to do exit interviews, and I found out from one of them who was leaving, he said, "We know who the alcoholics are and where they hide." Well, those alcoholics are gone, but we really, really had a very bad situation here that is taking its toll. And I think right now we're in better because we don't even have a leader. If we had time, I would tell you some of the funniest stories about the people we've had who said he fell off and he has so many metal things in his body he can't go through a construction, through an airplane, get onto an airplane. And then we found out he was stealing the credit cards from the kids. Took DeGracio's credit card and the kids were, we just have had a mess, awful, awful, awful mess. So now I think we're trying to clear it up, and we don't have those nasties up in the top who didn't allow the other people to come up. Buildings needs it, and I know where Pete's coming from in terms of grounds, and I know we have a wonderful man who gets nothing but praise and has bought into pride of the school beyond, I think, beyond any one of us who are even sitting here. So that I know where you're coming from, Pete, but I also think we're paying a price for the last 20 years plus of what we've had in the back. You and I go and we'll laugh over some of the things, the crazies we've had. If we had a person, and of course I go into the kind of person, yes, the job description's all there on paper, looks very nice, throw it out. You don't read it after a while, but if you've hired the right person who can pull this off and say, that's one big word, buildings and grounds goes together. You work for this whole entity. You don't work in here. You're not a master plumber who only does the plumbing. You're not only the person who digs the holes and puts in the beautiful conifer firs or whatever. If they can develop a camaraderie and a pride, as some of them now have, and have the right person over it, I don't think there should be any problem with grounds saying, I need this. And if there is, Tim is the one who should be hearing it and clobbering and saying, that doesn't go, children. You can't fight over who has the toy.
You'd hear
So
with
that's
two,
where I'm coming
two department heads, and I look at it this way. You have an English department head, you have a math department head. If they have a problem, they go here. And that's my vision of having buildings and grounds. If they have a problem, they go there.
We have a motion, resolution, it's been moved and seconded. Do we want to just call a question on this at this time? Do we need more discussion? Do we want to change it?
Just say one more thing. That I think we're talking about having Tim be the master of these two universes, and you have a supervisor here. You already have a supervisor with Chris Bick. You have then 3 people managing a group of 10. It seems like you have a very big superstructure for 10 people.
Well, there's part-timers too, that we just talked about the full-time people. The night people, there's really, I think, about 15 altogether. Not to argue your point about the management head.
What this will also do, Bernie, just so you know it too, is if this individual comes in, he's going to take over everything Russ has been doing. So it puts Russ back in the facility to start working, which is desperately needed right now. We can't keep up to all the stuff that's breaking down. All right? There's a ton of paperwork that Russ has eaten. He sat here right after we went through the building today for 2 hours typing to get the stuff ready. All right? He could have been out working those 2 hours. There's a lot of stuff here. Whether we deal with the outside issue as a separate thing, right now in the building, somebody is desperately needed to do this type of work. And it puts Russ back into the field to do the facility work that needs to be done. Just in our walkthrough today, we found 6 steam valves that are leaking like a faucet that all have to be addressed. You got one guy that fixes that stuff, and that's Steve. And he was out today.
Because he got sick probably from being on the roof.
Right, and they're drawn to the limit, these guys, and it's tough.
We have a motion, a resolution, and
make a suggestion of how we can solve this.
Please do.
My feeling of can we go ahead and get this person in, and hopefully quickly, so that we can get the building more under control. Can we observe for a year? I hope people will have confidence in saying it's working or it's not working, where you would be doing a very close evaluation, as we do with any first-timer, not with the idea of this person not being good for the entity of buildings and grounds, but seeing if this person is good for the whole thing, rather than next year come back and say, it didn't work, we really have to split the job. Would that
I don't think you have to split it. I think what Pete's saying is you already have someone dealing with Chris outside, and that's been Nick.
I mean, we have a really very specific action item here. It has to do with the approval of this Director of Operations, and this Director of Operations on line 5 clearly states that this is for custodial grounds and maintenance staff. I mean, that's what their governance is, plus they do inside and outside. Do we want to vote on this now? If we vote on it, we can turn it down, we can vote no, and then we can tell Fran and Tim, give us some more detail or divide it up. Or do we want to make a change? Does somebody want to make a change to this? Suggest a change? I just want to get this, we've been at this now for 20 minutes.
Tim, do you have an issue with...
I'm ready to vote if I can ask Tim one more question.
Now, wait a minute. Go ahead.
Tim, my question gets back to the, when we're going to expect this person to be here, and is that something that in your mind should be in the job description? Whatever the answer to that question is.
The answer is a lot.
Yes, but my question is, should that, hi Athena, be in the job description? You can feel free to answer too.
Being a professional.
Should what be in the
should
job?
the hours be in?
Well,
if not specifically hours, the expectation when we're hiring this person, and he looks at this job description, that this is not a 9 to 5 job.
It's very, very clear. But we've made it clear in the interviews that this is.
That's why I'm asking whether
this
Tim's view should be in
as
the
much
job
a 24/7 job as Russ has had.
Right.
I mean, Russ has really been a 24/7 kind of person.
Well, that's an item Pete's hitting on, is he going to come in like the other guys are coming in?
Yeah.
Okay.
In other words, if we've got a snowstorm and there's a blizzard, this guy's going to be here because he's going to deploy the outside guys, the inside guys. There's no more of this, I don't push a snow shovel or I don't.
See, then I'd put that in the job description. That's
So-
the point
so
I'm getting
Pete-
to. I would
so
vote this
Pete-
down, so you'd put that in the job description and bring it back to me. That's what I'm getting at.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where you would put that in a job description. What are you
Who's
gonna
in
put
the
in?
athletic director's job
They have to be
description?
here all the
Well,
time?
It doesn't have to
That
necessarily
is
be in the job
specific to
description.
the athletic director.
And there's
What's the
similar-
difference?
And there's
Well,
similar
there's
words in the administrator's contract about length of day. Tom, do you remember how we tried to address the fact that, if it's a 9 to 5, you're kidding me? We had some words in that contract that kind of addressed that.
Okay, so we have a suggestion, at least the elements of one, that's saying, let's consider putting something in this job description or in some related document that would describe what our expectations are in terms of that person being here and on the site and certain conditions and things like that. Is that what I'm hearing? Do we want to add this? Do we want to send this back to the administration and say, include this in here, or create some other ancillary document?
Well, I think
Is that-
what you're saying is more of an expectations. Is that?
Could be an
Yeah.
expectation, maybe
Also,
expectation,
the-
maybe
who
maybe
has-
document says job expectations.
Who has veto power over the other?
Okay.
That becomes such a
We
big
do.
part of this job. On
Well,
a
just,
daily
we're not gonna
basis.
answer that here, we're not gonna answer that, but you would be looking for clarification of administrative oversight. Who has governance responsibility under certain conditions, and so you're looking for more detail on that, and how that's gonna be handled. Is that the kind of thing you're looking for?
Yeah, and I think we
Can we
kind-
get- can
yeah,
we be-
we
can that be
kind of
provided?
talked about that already. You and I did offline, we talked about that.
Could we provide something in writing that would just outline some of those points? I don't think it's a lot, but just.
It
in terms
really
of-
isn't.
And that doesn't have to be in this job description. It may not be appropriate for here, but it may be appropriate for
Expectations.
some other document. There would be expectations or interviewing expectations, something like
Can I
that.
have one more question? I mean, because we talked about this in personnel, but did you have somebody actually in mind that you thought would fit this particular role? And I thought that's something I remember talking about. And a good candidate that would actually work in this position for the right salaries and everything like that. And the question I have is, I mean, I agree that some of these things maybe should be laid out, whether it's in an interview or some other expectation, but is that something that can happen, or is there a time issue with the person that you've talked to, or considered at least?
Well, the people that we've interviewed for this position, we've made it very clear in the interview process that there has to be a team approach. In other words, this person isn't the person that rules the world, so to speak, and to speak to your point, Peter. The other thing is that in terms of time commitment, it's huge time commitment, and that's not a 9 to 5 job. It's whenever, it's like on a snow day. When there's a
duty
snow day,
calls.
and Fran wakes up at 2:30 in the morning to check the radar, and Fran is up at 4 again in the morning to check the radar, and Fran is up at 4:45 starting to call the superintendents. That's not in my job description anyplace, but in order to make an appropriate snow call, that's what I have to go through. Now, in the sense that we have interviewed, I believe, 4 or 5 people in this process. And what we believe we found is perhaps someone who fills all the holes that we have. Someone that seems to be a very good manager of people, not a person that will create more conflict, and a person that has a lot of skill in managing people and helping people to work together. I think some of the issues about athletics specifically, and I think, as much as you say, Peter, it's not, I think it is driven a lot by your experiences as an athletic director. And again, in my feeling, I don't want whatever phone calls Bernie was getting, I don't want to get them. I want the grounds to look, I don't want to see a single blade of grass look differently than it looks now. So if there's something that isn't working in that relationship between the director of operations, I see the director of athletics is as important as the director of operations. Just like my math supervisor, my English supervisor, they're all on the same footing.
That's my point.
This
Put 'em
fellow
on the
does
same
not
footing.
have, this fellow is not in charge of the director of athletics.
No, but he's in charge of grounds, and he controls what the director of athletics can do or not do. So my
I
suggestion.
know you see it that way.
I want to just call a question. Can I just call a question on this so we can get this voted on? And let's move on. We've been on it now for nearly half an hour. Can I get somebody
Did
to
I
call the
speak to your
question?
point, Jerry, at all?
I'll call the question.
I was just wondering about timing as much as anything else, because there were some suggestions to do this or that and expectations, and I'm just curious about the timing element as far as.
We'd like to bring someone in sooner than later, obviously.
The question has been called. Does this need a roll call vote?
Yeah.
I would think so. Can I get a roll call vote for the director?
Why does it need a roll call vote?
Aren't we really adding a position? You're taking Russ and putting him to
No, all this is doing is creating the job description. In other words, we don't have on the books.
So
a
we're not
current-
authorizing you to fill
Not
it.
hiring anybody with this. All we're doing is talking about a job.
But you're interviewing already.
Well, you authorized us to do that.
We did authorize them to interview people.
And we've been calling it a director of operations right along.
Isn't it a new job, though?
No, we had people in this position, and then Russ just filled in when we lost our last one. Or
Well, we
fired
ripped the
him.
last
We
one
fired him. We
because-
didn't lose him.
Well,
We
we
fired him
lost him
because
by
he
one
was-
means or
We
another.
had
We were
brought
told we
this
didn't need
forward
him.
previously.
We were told we didn't need him.
This was a little lamb that's lost to us.
We had brought this forward in Personnel Committee report quite some
This all
time
went
ago as
through.
far as the direction that the district was going in, and it had been reported, and where we're going to find the money for it. In fact, that was all identified as part of that discussion.
Went through the whole
I think all
process.
you're doing now is approving the job description.
We've
You're not
already
hiring a
talked about the
person.
need for this position and tentatively given agreement to
For
that.
months, really.
a
We've been
while
on
ago.
this for
Now we're
months.
into the stages of job description.
So we just, we're
We-
trying
we
to,
have-
in the spirit of CUSAC, we're trying to make our job descriptions match the actual job that people are asked to do. Our whole portfolio of jobs descriptions is from the year of the flood, to be very honest, and we need to update that. So this is our first good faith effort to really do what we're supposed to do here in this
All right,
regard.
we're struggling through this one.
do you-
Go back into it.
Any reason,
How uncomfortable would you be if you struck the word grounds in that description
I'd be
right now?
uncomfortable.
Okay, that's
I
all
would
I'm
be.
asking.
Quite
But-
honestly, I
But
would
the
be.
bulk of the work really, though, is building, isn't it?
Yeah,
I have to look at it as a whole package. I really do.
No, I mean, you can, but
I have to look at it as a whole package.
I don't think you have to, but I think you have the right to.
we've had a number of suggestions on this. Unless somebody wants to make a revision and make some specific recommendations that would change this
too late. I
motion, I
called
would
the
suggest that,
question.
Peter's already called the question. Let's get the vote. I'm sorry, Laura?
Can we make a
Last
mo-
comment is going to
Okay.
come from Laura.
Can we make a motion to add, we talked about clarification of administrative oversight and expectation for hours.
I would suggest we do that in a second motion that's going to come right
That's a
after
great
this.
there you go. Nice job.
Wait a minute.
Nice job.
Wait a minute. What did you want to do now?
Clarification of administrative oversight, right?
What are we doing
And
here?
expectations of
Is this-
expectations of job performance.
Is this being added to the motion, Laura?
Yes.
Is that what you're doing?
Yes.
Okay, so we have,
Expectations.
this is really
for job-
complicated. 'Cause you already called the question.
Yeah, I don't understand what you can add.
Well,
Recall
rescind
it.
your call. Rescind your call.
You want to withdraw your roll call so we can make this adjustment to this and
Yes, I will
Thank you.
withdraw my calling of the question.
I didn't know if you could do that.
Well, we made that rule up just now.
All right,
If
what is it,
I'm
Laura,
allowed
that you want
to,
to do for C3 now?
We want to add the language.
Just a second, let her finish.
Well,
Oh, I'm sorry, I was just
we
going to.
need language, clarification of administrative oversight.
Well, no. We
We're
can't
gonna-
pass something that says we're going to add language to it later. I'm not going
No,
to
no, no,
withdraw
no.
my call of
No.
the question for that.
No,
No,
You got to make a motion
ahead, Laura.
to
Go
add the
ahead.
following language.
okay, so you want me to phrase whatever,
Yeah, for C2. So we're going to add it to the job description, or we're going to add it to the motion, one or the other.
We need it to the motion.
I would suggest we add it to the motion.
Yeah, that makes most sense.
We can approve it pending, we can ask for them to come back with very specific clarification of administrative
Oversight
and expectations for job performance. You could put that into the motion, and then we could ask them to come back at the 17th with that.
that works.
You can do that.
Okay, and then we can approve the package at the whole time, at that time. Okay? So we could say, and so I don't know, maybe you want to say we tentatively can approve this pending the clarification of administrative oversight. Help me out, guys.
No, not clear.
Give me some
No,
words here.
Not
you're
pending.
on step, because everybody wants to
You're
make
right
sure
there.
that this works. We
And-
know this is a very important part, education first, facility second. So we're really all working
Can I
here
make a
to try
suggestion
to
that we
make it
just
work.
table this for right now, and we ask them to come back with a job description and clarification of administrative oversight and expectation of job performance on the 17th.
Only thing about that is if there's a sense that no matter what's put in there, it's not going to fly, why do we want to do that? Why don't we find out right now whether this is going to fly or not?
Yes, that's
because there's been a lot of discussion both ways.
But
So
in
I
its
think we
current
should get that
state,
sense.
it might
Tabling
not
it
fly
for-
in its current state.
Well, I understand, but that's not going to change people's minds.
All right.
You know,
I'm going to suggest that let's do this.
Take a straw
Let's
poll,
go
do
ahead,
whatever you
let's
wanna
go
do,
ahead
but-
let's go ahead and just vote on this, okay?
Unless you want to
As
add
is.
to the motion.
With the addition of the
With the addition
motion.
into the motion of.
Just, I'm not sure how we do that, to be honest with you.
That the board approve the proposed job description for Director of Operations,
you can always amend it later. You
And
can always bring it back next meeting with a slight change.
including administrative oversight and
can I say-
expectations for job performance.
What is the urgency of having this approved tonight as opposed to the 17th?
Well, we won't be able to have another personnel committee meeting before the 17th. And what we would like to do, since we have someone that we would like to hire, we would like to be able to bring that forward to the board on the 17th. And it would be a little awkward not having a job description for someone that we would like to hire. So we would kind of like to have something in place.
So we're not going to add anything to it. So take that off the table because it's not going to happen.
Oh, no, no. I mean, I think what I'm not saying that's not going to happen. I'm saying
It's
is
not going to
that.
happen before we hire anybody.
We-
Well, no, you don't hire
you
them
know
until the
that
17th.
The conditions that she's going to put on are exactly the conditions that this board has been talking about, because that's where we feel the need is, to tighten up. So all we're trying to do is to move this ahead, knowing that she needs the language in a little area there. But I think we're getting bogged down with how to do it rather than doing it. We all know where we want to go.
We could defer
Why don't
I'm
we-
sorry, I don't.
Then we're
I'm
gonna have to-
thoroughly
we
We could
confused
defer
now.
the hiring till January then.
I think that's what we're
January
going to have.
7th.
Can we hire somebody on an interim basis and not have them be this particular
Well,
position for a month?
The interesting.
That would be weird.
The
I mean,
inter-
just,
well-
You'd
yeah,
never
I
get
know what
anybody
you're
to
saying. It'd be a
commit
great
to that.
idea, but I
I
think,
think-
wouldn't it be,
I think
here's your
anybody who-
opportunity, Bernie. We're not going to tell you what you're really going to work on when you.
No, I
Yeah.
think, say, and part of your job for the first month is to write this thing up better.
Well, that would be very nice,
Had
except
that happen, but.
no one would leave their job
Can we
to take
just
an
hold-
Write
interim.
up the
That
job
maybe will be
Can
a
we
job.
move
I
this
think you
into-
have to trust the administrators to make sure whoever they hire understands those are the expectations, because that's the kind of person they want in the job. I mean, they're not going to want somebody who doesn't do exactly what we're talking about here. So I think you have to let them go forward and hire the person, and they're going to make it pretty clear that this is what's expected. If not, they're not going to be in the job. It's that simple. You don't need it in the job description, I think, to make sure the expectations are there. But, I
But
mean,
the
my
people on this
concern, my
table-
concern is that there's been enough discussion on this issue as to whether some people want it or don't want it. So tabling it or waiting until you put a few more language pieces in is not gonna change that. If that's not the direction we're gonna go in, they need another direction. So we need right now, tonight, decide if we want this direction or some other direction. And then they can go forward from that.
I want this direction, but I'm not voting for this. I mean, that's just
Well,
so
what
you
would-
know.
What would you vote for then, Peter, so that they can?
I can't do it now. I can't fix it tonight.
Is the fix that big of a thing, though?
I don't know. Probably not, Jerry.
I mean, that's the problem we have here, is it,
Could-
is,
Probably
is,
not.
Can we endorse the concept that this is the direction then? Forget the job description, maybe you could bring that forward next time.
I thought we already did that, though. I thought
No, we
already
didn't,
charged
because
them
I've heard
to-
people
to
say
hire
yes,
somebody.
I've heard people say no. So I think it's important the board give the administration a sense as to whether this type of position is what's, I agree, if personnel brought it forward.
let me ask you
yes,
a
we
question
did.
then. If we had a job description and a job performance and
It wouldn't look
governance
much
structure, let me just finish before you condemn what I'm saying.
No, I'm not.
That would address the issues that Pete had raised with regard to how this is actually supposed to function in a manner so that it would actually appear to function, which should work. Because I think it managerially this can work, and I think you can define the scope of work so people understand it. Is that something, if we had that, let's just say we could create that document, is that something that people would be willing to support?
Yes.
Yes.
I would, but I think the question is, what's different about this thing? You have somebody in charge of the outdoors, you have Russ inside, you have Tim in charge of both of them, and what you're creating really is just another, seems to me, a very similar thing.
We've had this discussion through personnel, we've had this discussion with buildings and grounds. This seemed to be the direction that we were feeling supported in. I don't see this as redundancy, I see this as a huge hole that we have right now. whereas you're viewing it, or maybe some others are viewing it as redundancy. And I honestly don't. It would be like saying, okay, the director of guidance, the director of curriculum really knows a lot about guidance, so we'll make the director of guidance the director of curriculum too. It's that much of a job.
Ask
It
if
really
anybody
is.
besides me and Lou are going to support this.
What's that?
But Lewis said that Russ needs to get his hands-on.
We need to
He's
get
gotta
him
get
Russ
right
doesn't
hands
want to
with-
be doing what he's doing right now.
So-
He doesn't want to be there.
So you can't
Okay.
leave Russ where he is then.
He doesn't want to be in that managerial position, period. Or else he would have interviewed for the position. He's already said it.
I made a suggestion. I asked if you would be willing to support something that had the clarification as well as the job expectations, and then perhaps the job description, revisions to job description, that would then allow us to go forward with this kind of person, a director of operations. It would be covering both of them, both buildings and grounds. I think that's the core issue. Is it buildings and grounds, or is it just buildings? So
Do you want to take
I'm
a
saying
vote?
I would like to get a show of hands on that concept, buildings and grounds, and let's just say that we can deal with the issues that have been raised here in job expectations and governance of that individual, as well as then a job description. Can I get a show of hands as who would be supportive of that? All right, so if we have that clarification made, then we would be able to move forward. Okay? I think that gives sufficient direction to the administration as to what we need from them and to bring this back. I would suggest that that be done through the Personnel Committee. It'd be brought back to the Personnel Committee on the 17th.
I don't think we'll have time to meet before now on the 17th, though.
Well, whether we meet or not, what I'd say is that people send any specific comments, any specific ideas they want incorporated, and then we'll try to pull them together. Whether we meet or not, we'll just try to pull it all together.
We could do it
So we
electronically.
incorporate what people have kind of said. I have some notes, but I'm not sure I've got everybody's concerns. So to the extent there are concerns, just send them to us, and the Personnel Committee will try to.
Pete, are you on the Personnel Committee?
No.
All right. Can we-
No, but I would like his, yeah,
I
I'd
want
like
him
to
to
see
be on.
his.
Can we get him engaged on the Personnel Committee then, and so we can get his input into that process? There's 4 members on that committee, right?
Yeah, you'll be out, right?
I'm on, but I'm going to be away.
So if we can get that feedback, because I would like to have that in
I think
there.
everybody's feedback should be incorporated.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
that's
know
a good
Pete had
point.
some major concerns.
So what do we want to
We
do?
all want to go in the same place.
So what do we want to do with this
Little wiggles
motion? I know, but but I want
But you have
I
to
want to
get
go to
rid of the
another
wiggles.
place, which is called, I want to go home sometime soon tonight. Okay? What do we want to do with this motion then? Do you want to just turn it down? Vote it down?
Well, we postpone it.
Table it,
Or you might want to table it.
table it till next meeting.
Can I get a motion to postpone this motion to the next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right. That was done.
It was painful, but it was
More
fun.
more or less. No, that's all right. No, I'll point out to you, it was a long discussion, but I thought that we had a lot of good points that came out.
It was helpful.
And I hope that everybody had a chance to express themselves.
Eric just talked too much. Wearing my ear out over
All right, can I get, anybody want to pull anything on the Ds? Can I get a motion on the Ds?
I will move,
I'll
go
second
ahead.
it.
I'll move D1 through D4.
All those,
Sandy's.
I
We
did
need a
it. I
roll.
did it before he did
she did it.
this.
Can I get a roll call vote?
Binder?
Aye.
Mr. Fallon?
Yes.
Mr. Belzerano?
Yes.
Mr.
Yes.
Stecker? Mr. Mandel?
Yes.
Mr. Pepe?
Yep.
Mr. Sun?
Yes.
Dr. Yaget?
Yes.
Dr. Seeley?
Yes. Okay, we're on to other business. Any other business at this point in time?
I would just like to, I didn't bring it up when Jerry brought up the Personnel Committee, and I know we don't want to spend much more time on personnel. But regarding guidance, we've heard a couple times that the pickings are slim out there, but despite that fact, I think a lot of us on the board recognize how important the position of Director of Guidance here. A lot of us ran for this board wanting to improve the performance of this school in getting kids into most competitive colleges. And I think we need to be creative and beat the bushes, to find ways to find people, including possibly going out to schools that are doing this right and asking the directors there if they know of people
We've been doing-
who are young people maybe
We've been
that
doing
they
that.
might be able to do.
doing
When you continue to beat the bushes, when we get somebody here, I hope, and I don't want to be part of the interview process, but I hope that part of the questions that we ask them is for them to take a look at Watchung Hills and then provide us with their plan for what they're going to do
That's exactly
to
what
improve
we've
where
been
we're
doing.
going.
That's exactly
Because that's what
been
I'm
part
going to
of-
want to hear when you ask me to
When
approve
we've been
the
doing the
position.
interviews, that's core to it. That is absolutely core to it.
Thank you.
Any other business at this point in time? Jerry?
A couple of things. One is, I know you had the demographic study on your goals. We just went through Greenbrook, and it looks like things are flattening out. And I'm
Yeah, they
wondering
are.
whether or not,
All of them are like that.
so, I mean, it's just something that, I don't know whether we plan
Yeah.
to do a demographic study or not, but it'd be interesting to see
Yeah, our
what the enrollment.
demographic study goes, basically what we're still getting is that the bump that's from 5th into 6th, 6th into 7th, and 7th into 8th. So in the next 3 years, we will climb to about a little on the plus side of 2,500.
When are we gonna do
And
an
then,
update? Do you
then
know?
we're gonna flat.
When
Let's
is an
agree on the
update?
goals, and we'll plan the update.
Whether it's every 5 years, I have to do one or something.
We haven't had the demographic study was done by Whitehall, I'm gonna say 2000, in
It was done
2000.
in conjunction with the borough.
Yeah,
thing.
so 2000.
So goals or not goals, you probably
Yeah.
should get one.
So we're probably ready for another. As I said, though, but what we're still getting is that the bubble that's coming through in all the towns, and all the towns are flat from in the elementaries, the early elementaries. So we should be staying at that 25 number.
Another
for a
thing we
while.
talked about is shared services and maintenance. Yeah, you have a garage here, we have buses.
Yeah.
Fuel, we talked about fuel purchasing or fueling a fuel depot, and I'm not sure if there's any interest here in sharing those kind of services or doing something along those lines. But I encourage to try to see if there's any way to do that. Fuel is a big component. I think if you do your own fueling, maybe it can be done here, maybe it can't be done, but. And the other thing I just wanted to, we had the issue with the delayed opening when Greenbrook had I drove my daughter up here, it was all raining. Got up here, it was all slush. And what I've heard is expression that because it's a 90-minute delay and we have a 2-hour time window because our buses are, you can't do that. You can't get the kids here. I've heard there's been some teachers don't like the kids coming in like that, even though, so I just encourage, if you, to the extent you can say, we don't have control over this when busing, because of the way we have to do our routes.
Right.
You can't get them here in 90 minutes. They have to be late almost always.
We don't, yeah, we don't.
Just to remind
we don't
teachers
penalize
that.
them. Yeah, we will
Well, I've heard
remind.
back that teachers are not happy with it.
Yeah, we'll remind the teachers to be more sensitive about that.
Okay.
Also, I was just going to add to the guidance director piece. We did discuss in the personnel committee, and I don't know how the board would feel about this, but at some point, if we are still feeling frustrated with the candidates that we are seeing, if the board would consider, a search committee to go out and, really be able to, use the services of a search committee to find. I mean, it is that type of a position where it might be worthwhile. I would certainly get some proposals for you and find out some.
When do you think you'd know that you'd want to do something like that?
I would say if we don't see anything really positive by mid-January, I think we should probably consider doing that.
Maybe coming forward with a request for search.
Even
if
to
the
find us
personnel
an
committee is
interim.
going to recommend that to me, I'm certainly going to support it, and I'm sure they will.
I mean, even if it gets us an interim person for a period of time.
The other thing was, did
Okay.
you want to approve minutes tonight? Because there were minutes in
We
the
didn't
packet.
approve any minutes.
I think we approved them in the second meeting, though.
Yeah, you just got them for information tonight.
Okay.
We'll approve them next week.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Any other business at this point in time? Okay, with that, we have an opportunity for public to comment the second time.
Seeing none?
With seeing we have a lot of public left, I suggest that we move into executive session.
For purposes of discussing negotiations and personnel, action may be taken upon,
Personnel, right.
action may be taken upon our return.
And litigation potentially.
And litigation.
And litigation. Action may be taken. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
How do you think you have to